to thank everyone for joining us this afternoon for the new, under our new committee structure, and I believe that this is our last budget hearing for the Infrastructure and Neighborhoods budget hearing. Today's hearing is held jointly by myself and Council members Day-Achauer, who is sick but joining us virtually, and Councilmember Wyche. Thank you. I mean, Lourdes, Barroso, that Padilla is deeply invested in getting your name correct. So before we get started, council members, is there anything you would like to say before we dig in?
Yeah, appreciate that, council member. It's always interesting that all the hard names got the same committee, so we'll figure that out going forward. I know this is the last budget hearing and folks are ready to wrap things up, so I'll keep my welcoming remarks brief. I am excited for our community to learn about the good work already being done by the city to protect the environment, invest in our future, but I'm even more excited for what is on the horizon. Columbus, along with every other city, is at a pivotal moment with our changing climate. Add in the growth we are seeing at the same time, and that creates unique challenges, but also has created an opportunity for this body to make the right decisions when it comes to environmental policy. I want all of our children to have clean air, water, and green spaces now and 30 years from now. Therefore, I will always have our environment and sustainability at the forefront of every ordinance that comes across my desk, including this budget. Thank you to those who have continued to stay engaged throughout the budget process, whether you tuned in virtually or came to City Hall in person. We know we've had some late nights, but these hearings happen so residents of Columbus can be informed of how their tax dollars are being spent. I want to also give a big thanks to the department directors and deputy directors for being here each night to present and answer questions, and to all the staff members who really do a lot of the work behind the scenes to make this as seamless as possible. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Day-Achauer, is there anything you would like to say to open us up?
Yes, and I had to keep it really brief because talking makes me cough. But good afternoon, everyone. Apologies that I cannot be there. I actually hate doing WebEx, but this is so important to me. I'm excited to be participating in budget hearings for my first time, like my colleague, Councilmember Wyche. Budget hearings are so important for ensuring government transparency, and so I'm just really looking forward to having conversations on how we can make this budget work better for the people of Columbus.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Sorry, just wanted to add, because I knew she wasn't going to say something. As one of the newer members of the Capricorn Caucus, I also wanted to wish Councilmember Day-Achauer happy birthday. It's her birthday. She's not having the best day because she's under the weather, but still wanted to wish you happy birthday, Nancy.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
And we hope you feel better, and on behalf of everyone in Chambers, thank you for staying home today. I say that with love. So the purpose of the hearing today is to review and comment on the mayor's 2024 budget as it relates to infrastructure and neighborhoods. The infrastructure overview includes our departments of neighborhoods, public service and transportation, recreation and parks, building and zoning, and public utilities. So obviously we've been holding, with the new structure of our committees, we've been doing budget hearings a little differently. And so we're excited to bring all of our folks together to hear from each of these departments. I want to echo Councilmember Wyche. Thank you to all of our departments. Thank you all for staying late. Thank you for being in the trenches with us. And today what we have asked all of the departments to do is to do a brief presentation where they will share the priorities for the department for this year. In addition, they will share their budget priorities and how they're outlining those priorities. From there, we will then have the council members all ask questions from the departments. And then after we have gone through each one of the departments, then we will open it up for public testimony. I want to also thank our residents. We have a number of them who are here in Chambers with us. We did receive a number of written testimony. I will say, especially as it pertains to infrastructure, I like to say everything that we do at the city is important, but in particular, these committees tend to hit closest at home, and that is quite literally for our residents. So we usually get lots of participation. So I want to thank all the folks who both joined us and took the time to send in public commentary. So first up, we have the Department of Neighborhoods. I would like to introduce Director Carla Williams-Scott, Director Deputy Todd Diefendorfer, and Julia Carter, who I believe is also joining us virtually to give an overview of the budget. So, Director, I'll hand the floor to you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Council Members Barroso de Padilla, Day-Achauer, and Wyche. Thank you for the opportunity to provide an overview for the Department of Neighborhood's 2024 operating budget proposal. For 2024, the department's proposed budget is $13,470,428. This includes 67 full-time staff, two part-time staff. This is an increase of just over $3.4 million from our 2023 budget and an increase of 2 full-time staff. The work funded in our budget is fully aligned with Mayor Ginther's Opportunity Rising agenda. By aligning with Opportunity Rising, everything the Department of Neighborhoods does is focused on advancing racial equity through the programming we offer, how we deliver services, the makeup of our staff, and who we contract with. 2023 was a very productive year, and our 2024 budget proposal was developed to ensure this momentum continues. Beginning with our 311 Customer Service Center, which received just over 485,000 customer contacts, and successfully implemented a number of changes to improve the customer experience. 8 additional customer service representatives joined the team, and the 311 members are now working, in addition to our offices at 1410 Cleveland Avenue, they are working at the North, South, East, and Far East Neighborhood Pride Centers. This change allows residents the opportunity to schedule an appointment and meet in person to submit and check on a service request. Additionally, in 2023, the call center hours were expanded. We are now open daily, Monday through Friday, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. In April, we celebrated the first anniversary of the new 311 system that included the launch of a new website and mobile application. Data illustrates that the enhancements have been well received by residents and are improving customer service throughout the city. Use of the new C-Bus 311 mobile app continues to grow. It was used more than 43,000 times in 2023, which is an increase from nearly 33,000 contacts in 2022. The average time it takes to answer a call during peak volume periods decreased in 2023 to 3 minutes and 17 seconds. It was 7 minutes and 11 seconds in 2022. This is something that we're very proud of, working with our team to reduce the amount of time that during peak volume that it takes our service reps to respond to a call. The percent of calls answered within 20 seconds increased to 60% in 2023, which was up from 44% in 2022. Residents now have the opportunity to also submit their feedback on the service they receive from 311. The number of positive comments grew from 33 in 2022 to 80 in 2023. We use this information to help with training and moving forward as we bring new staff on board. Our 2024 budget proposal includes a request for a 311 Customer Service Center manager, for a second 311 Customer Service Center manager. This will be very important and to help manage the staff as we implement the elements of the new system and continue to expand by adding the service reps to the neighborhood pride centers. We also appreciate Council's investment in the Community Relations Commission in 2023. With Council support, we launched a 4-month campaign to educate residents in the Linden, Hilltop, and Eastland communities about the services of the Community Relations Commission. The ads reached over 200,000 Facebook users. We also held our first Advocacy and Action Conference focused on the topic of disability discrimination. The number of discrimination complaints and inquiries from residents increased in 2023. Employment discrimination was an area which received the most complaints for last year. In 2023, the neighborhood liaisons continue to provide service to our area commissions in a variety of ways. 11 of our area commissions participated in the second year of the citywide elections that was held in August. The department also hosted 12 area commission trainings and 2 in-person networking sessions. These sessions gave commissioners an opportunity to learn from one another while also hearing from city leaders, departments, and community partners. We look forward to continuing this series this year in partnership with the Department of Building and Zoning Service, as well as other departments and community organizations. In 2024, neighborhood liaisons will again work with the area commissions and the Department of Public Service to combat illegal dumping by identifying problem alleys in need of cleanup. We do this by working with our area commissions that help us to identify which alleys in their neighborhoods are the most problematic, and then we worked to provide additional cleanup in addition to what our team at Public Service does. In 2024, we will be undertaking a process to refresh the neighborhood pride centers. We will work with our partner departments to ensure that the centers are meeting current community needs. At this time, we do not have any plans to add additional pride centers. The neighborhood planning work achieved a new milestone with the launch of the Eastland Community Planning process. We launched that in August, and this is now the third of the planning areas that we are working in. MKSK is our lead consultant, and they are working now to gather extensive public input, and that will be used to formulate the plan that will be released later this year. After launching the One Linden Plan 5 years ago, we re-engaged the Linden community in 2023 to ensure the core pillars of the plan were being fulfilled. Multiple investments were made, including the Healthy Neighborhoods, Healthy Families Home Repair Program through Nationwide Children's Hospital, and the One Linden Schools Initiative, which is a collaboration between The Ohio State University, Columbus City Schools, and United Way, and the Department of Neighborhoods. On the Hilltop, investments were made to advance the Envision Hilltop Plan. These included supporting social and emotional learning at West High School and providing seed funding for Hilltop Rise, the new economic development corporation for the Hilltop. The New American Program work helped to lead the way in implementation of the city's language access code by providing over-the-phone interpretation and document translation to all city departments. 106 requests were completed in 2023, which is up from 84 in 2022. Additionally, the New American Leadership Academy continued with 19 individuals completing the program in the fall of 2023. We also increased engagement of our 150-plus alumni by holding the second annual New American Leadership Alumni Summit. This summit focused on small business, nonprofit management best practices, as well as civic engagement training. Through a new partnership with the Columbus Global Academy, the NALA Junior program completed its first year with 30 freshmen and sophomore students who were engaged in learning about leadership development. The program expanded to include juniors and seniors from Columbus International High School during the 2023-2024 school year. Additionally, our Rise Up C-Bus program continues for the second year, with 11 communities hosting an event. More than 75 city departments and community resource organizations participated as well. We have 8 events planned for 2024. Excuse me. Mobile City Hall engaged residents by participating in over 50 community events, and the team provided support to the Haitian migrants that were living at Colonial Village by gathering and distributing hundreds of coats, blankets to residents. Our youth engagement through My Brother's Keeper program and the Commission on Black Girls was a key part of our department's work in 2023. We are pleased to have an additional $3.1 million in additional funding allocated to our proposed budget to allow summer youth programming to continue for this year. My Brother's Keeper Village developed a citywide process for solicitation of proposals for summer youth programming. 90 organizations were awarded funding, totaling $20.1 million citywide in 2023. Some of the key program successes included 374 student awarded internships, over 3,000 students enrolled in programming, and 123 students got to attend a No Limit Entrepreneur Summit at The Ohio State University featuring Master P. A lot of people might not know who Master P was, but the kids really enjoyed him.
Just kidding.
Funding recipients were held accountable through the use of uniform administrative requirements, cost principles, and audit for federal awards, as well as performance measures and outcomes that were created by the department that align with our work. The Commission on Black Girls joined My Brother's Keeper to engage over 360 youth through employment program opportunities that supported skill development in areas such as content creation, videography, and fashion. To support the administering of summer youth programming, this new fiscal position has been included in the proposed 2024 budget. Also in 2023, and this is something that we are extremely proud of, MBK Village was one of 27 communities across the country to achieve entry-level certification from My Brother's Keeper Alliance through the Obama Foundation. Certification is achieved by building collective impact infrastructure aligned with the MBK Equity Framework, documenting those efforts online on an online platform, and receiving formal approval from the MBK Alliance. As a result of officially achieving certification status for completing the MBK certification process, our local chapter was recognized at the 2023 Democracy Forum to equip communities with necessary tools to impact change at a local level. Lastly, as a component of this recognition, we're able to continue to receive technical assistance, support, and learn from other MBK models across the U.S. In addition to our work that is advancing racial equity across Columbus, I am personally committed to advancing equity within the department. I'm committed to ensuring that our staff reflects the community we serve and that we work with a diverse group of community vendors. Through self-selection, 29 members of the team in the Department of Neighborhoods identify as Black, 17 as white, 3 as Hispanic, 1 as Asian, and 2 as biracial. The Department of Neighborhood spend on professional services was just a little over $1.2 million, of which $748,000, or 62%, was allotted to minority and women business enterprises who have completed the City of Columbus Minority Business Registration process. Again, thank you for the opportunity to share the 2023 department highlights and our proposed work and priorities for 2024. And at this time, I would be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Director. Well, first I want to start off with Councilmember Day-Achauer, who is the new chair, sad to say, but happy, of neighborhoods, or that she's helping to chair neighborhoods as part of the new committee. It's been a long day, y'all. Sorry, I need some coffee before this hearing. So, Councilmember, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Council Member, and thank you, Director. That was a very impressive list of programs that you have been working on that I can see would really benefit the city. I would like for you to expand a bit on the training that you're doing with the area commissions to work on the expansion that you spoke of on representation of community members, specifically diversifying as far as age, ethnicity, and backgrounds, so that our area commissions reflect their communities better.
Thank you, Councilmember, for that question. Yes, one of the things that we do through the New American Leadership Academy is we are working with the folks that participate in there to serve on our area commissions and civic associations, because we too believe that the area commissions should reflect the rich diversity that is the city of Columbus. In addition to working with our New American programming, the training that we will offer 9 trainings this year. We have planned 9 trainings and 2 networking sessions. The trainings cover topics such as planning, variances, rezoning, an overview of the roles and responsibilities of an area commissioner, which is provided by our city attorney's office. They receive training on budget and fiscal, growth and density, and website training, as well as an overview of city departments. I will say that in 2021 and 2022, we did a survey with the area commissions to determine what they wanted. And so for those 2 years, we really went outside of the city training, and we focused on things like, how to deal with difficult people, meeting people, working with people from different backgrounds. And so we saw some of that need coming out of the pandemic, that we just saw people were really being mean to each other. And it just wasn't, the area commissioners were struggling to get along. And so we went to more self-focused training that would help the individuals. And then this year, after surveying them, they're really interested more in a lot of the changes that are taking place in the city in terms of the revisions to our zoning code, the growth and density that's taking place. So that's how we have tried to adapt the trainings to reflect that.
Thank you. And I have a second question. Could you speak to the funding and the success of the summer youth grants programming? Because I know that's separate from all this other incredible youth programming you have. So could you elaborate on that, please?
Yes, absolutely. Our department was just one of several departments that held summer youth contracts last year, but we held, as a city, we had over $20 million out on the street to really impact our young people. And one of the things that we tried to do was make sure that we worked with some of those grassroots community organizations that we knew were doing good work, but had not had the opportunity or did not necessarily have the infrastructure to receive government funding. And so we made sure that we worked with trusted community partners that could help serve as fiscal agents to help them so that they were able to continue to do the good work that they had been doing, working with our young people. We have a final report that we are putting the finishing touches on that will talk about all the programs that were funded, the young people that were served, and some of the highlights from that. And we hope to be able to share that with you in the first quarter of this year.
Thank you, Director. I look forward to seeing that report. That's all for me, Councilmember Barroso de Padilla.
Thank you, Chair. Councilmember Wyche, do you have questions?
Yeah, just one. First, thank you for the report, and then also kudos to you and your team on putting together a really successful MLK Day celebration. I mean, you really did take us all to church, and we appreciated that. I just wanted to follow up on your budgeted items for blight and illegal dumping. I'm sure you knew I was going to call that out, but just wanted to see if you could just provide a little bit more detail in terms of how those funds are being spent and the tracking that's being done related to the work being done.
Yep, absolutely. So we use a couple of different ways to determine where we're going to, the alleys or the communities that we're going to work through. Certainly, we work with our liaisons and the area commissions and the area commissioners, especially some that particularly pay particular attention to that in their neighborhoods. They know where the problem areas are in their neighborhoods. And then additionally, we look at the zip code areas that we get customer service calls in for 311. And so putting those two, that data together, we work with a contracted vendor to then determine what we're able to accomplish or what we're able to clean up. And sometimes we think we have funding that will go a long way, and then we get into a particularly challenging area, and so it may cost a little more to remove, to do the removals. And then we'll assess it at the end of the program, at the end of the summer, to see how it worked. Generally, the alley cleanups go from about late spring till maybe early to mid-fall.
Thank you. And just one quick follow-up. Is this a sustaining budgeted amount, or is this an increase from the previous year?
This is the sustained amount that we've had.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Director, I have two questions. You're not going to be surprised by either one of them. First, I would like to, and you referenced the East Mall planning area. So could you, you You talked about the company that's essentially the planning company that's coming up with having conversations. I know we are in the middle right now of having multiple community conversations that kind of collect data that then we'll share at the end of this year. Can you just talk about what the planning timeline looks like in terms of what our residents can expect and how they continue to engage? So I know we've gone through a couple of these different area plans, but I think just a refresher for folks of what that process looks like and where we are in the process right now.
Yep, absolutely, and thank you for that. The planning process generally takes between 12 to 18 months, depending on the size of the area and the time of the year that we embark on it. And so we launched this plan in August. Our hope is to have, be pretty far along, though, by the end of this year. And it is the planning process, while MKSK is the lead contractor, it is a collaboration. They have a team also working with development strategies who will help us with our housing and retail studies. So those will be done as part of the plan. The Neighborhood Design Center, and then Cohere. And Cohere is actually working now on the community engagement. And so they are in the process of doing focus groups throughout the Eastland planning area. And we just met probably about 2 weeks ago to look at the folks that they were reaching and then kind of adjust that to make sure that we were reaching everybody in the community. So now they're doing some focus groups in the schools that are in the area. We want to make sure we reach the young people. They're doing focus groups with some of our new American residents. And so generally, once we get through that part of the process and then start having the community work groups, it generally ends up taking about 1.5 years to complete the full planning process.
Got it. And then my other question goes to, well, let me go back for a second, just on Eastland. So along the way, residents will continue to have parts of input, right, as a plan
Absolutely.
progresses. And then once we deliver that plan, then when can folks start to see whatever development, like when can they start to see potential shovels in the ground? Like, can you just talk about the next iteration of that? Because I think we've, especially now, are starting to get more interest in, because of the community conversations, what's happening with Leeson, as we talk about Link Us and we talk about it, while it's not on one of the corridors directly, obviously thinking about all of the impacts along the corridor on that stretch of the east side is something that residents have had lots of concerns about, so.
Absolutely. And the good thing about the work that we're doing, Councilmember, is that the residents really don't have to wait until the end of the planning process to see shovels in the ground. I think once we announced that we were out in the area, there are organizations that had been maybe mulling around the idea of doing things that we're already in conversation with. So I think residents will begin to see things happening and changes taking place even before the plan is finalized. But generally, right after a plan, different things can happen, and it just depends on what are the priorities that come out of the plan. And I don't want to speculate on what those are because it's resident driven. But I can share with you that in the other planning areas in Linden and Hilltop, priorities have included things like, improved housing, access to employment, student success, the health of the community. And I don't think that the things that come out of the Eastland plan will be too very much different.
Sure, and we've already started with some infrastructure improvements along the Hamilton Road corridor,
Absolutely.
I know, with public service. So, and then to just pivot, but kind of related, so immigrants, migrants, and refugees, #1 factor behind our population growth. We've done really great work with NALA, the New Americans Leadership Academy. We started some work with Immigrants Make Columbus that will continue. We've talked about seating a IRMA council, which will have a much better name that people will understand the acronym. But as we think about that, is there plans or thoughts around expanding the work as it pertains to these communities across the diaspora, especially as we see our population boom and that's helping to drive that?
Absolutely, and I'll let Todd share some. That program reports up through him, and then with funding in our 2023 budget, we were able to bring on an additional staff person to do just that.
Councilmember, appreciate that question. Abby and Lindor, our two team members, are really thinking creatively right now about what more we can do. So keep that wonderful base with those NALA alumni, but looking at a conversation series to engage more people in the community, kind of going from sort of the new Americans from the early 1900s and kind of coming forward and thinking about that. Wanting to expand the NALA junior work into some different schools. Abdi's having some conversations about that. Wanted to build a handbook for new Americans, kind of a way, well, I was joking with them the other day that they're having to speak to the world as they sort of translate how we do things in Columbus, so folks can kind of integrate, more quickly. So that's just a sampling of things that they're planning to start doing this year, some new festivals and that sort of thing. So we're really, really excited about that.
And then my last question is the support. Can you just give a quick update on the support that we are giving to the Haitian migrants that are, I know that we talked about this being a marathon. We've given continued support both through the department and city council to help moving folks out of Colonial Village. But if you just want to give a quick update on where we are.
Absolutely. From our perspective, the department provided translation services. We worked to take in donations of coats, blankets. What other things did we do? Coats, blankets, clothing, to help support the residents out there. And then it was our colleagues in the Department of Development that are working to actually physically get them moved into temporary housing, and then working to try to look at what options are for those families on a permanent basis.
Perfect. I just wanted to also highlight, it was actually an alumni of NALA that also helped with the Haitian Community Network that has been helping to support those families. So thank you for that update. Thank you for your report. We do have a slight change in the agenda, I think from what we published just due to scheduling. And I want to thank Director Messer for being patient and flexible as we moved him up in the agenda. So we're going to move over to the Department of Building and Zoning Services. So I think, Director, it's just you this evening? Just you.
Yes.
So I'm going to go ahead and hand over the floor.
Thank you, Councilmember Barroso de Padilla and other members of council. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here this afternoon and talk a little bit about building and zoning services and our budget for 2024. I appreciate following the Department of Neighborhoods. It's not lost on me the value that we provide our neighborhoods as well. As a matter of fact, the mission statement of building and zoning is building a safe and sustainable city where neighborhoods thrive. So we see ourselves, yes, largely as a regulatory department, but at the same time, it's through those regulation and the enforcement of those regulations that we have quite an impact on the city of Columbus and especially our neighborhoods. Whether it's our building permits that we do or our zoning or code enforcement, the department is very impactful on the quality of life of our neighborhoods, and that's not lost on us. So with that being said, just a quick overview of building and zoning, just because whenever we talk about budgets, it's always relevant that we largely are funded by non-general fund revenue. So all of the building fees, all the permit fees that are collected by building and zoning, those go to support the Building and Zoning Services Department. However, we do have code enforcement, and our code enforcement section, it is a general fund. So if you look at our department, we have 259 full-time employees. 176 of those are for building and zoning and would be supported by the Development Services Fund or the fees from permitting, whereas 83 folks that dwell in our code enforcement division, those are supported by the general fund. We also will be looking to add another general fund agency in the spring of this year. Licensing and weights and measures will also be joining building and zoning services. and will be a part of our department. So we're looking forward to that. Also, another division that may be small but has a lot of impact on our neighborhoods and on some of the activities that go on in our city. If you look at our actual budget numbers, I can share that overall, we have a budget just over $40 million, $40,559,184, with about $9.5 million of that goes to code enforcement and $31 million goes to building and zoning. So from a general funds perspective, our impact is $9.5 million. It'll be slightly larger than that once licensing and weights and measures comes over in April. Those both represent, for building and zoning, that represents a 13% increase over our budget of 2023. And for code enforcement and the general fund, it's a 2% increase, or basically just a sustaining budget over 2023. We wanted to focus a little bit more on code enforcement. In code enforcement, we have 57 code officers that are on the street. We also have, in that group, we have 10 what we call PACE team code officers, standing for proactive code enforcement. Those code officers are largely the ones that you're going to see at places like Colonial Village and some of the other properties that have large-scale issues. Our PACE team gets involved in many of those larger-scale projects where code officers need to be involved. We also have 5 specialists. 2 of them focus on court cases. 1 focuses on abatement, sort of our graffiti, number of issues regarding nuisance. We have 1 that focuses just on zoning cases, and a crew that focuses on blight, so boarding up houses, helping houses that have a lot of emergency issues with them. What I will say from a 2024 priority standpoint, you've all already know about this, but our by far the largest project for 2024 for building and zoning is the zoning code update. So we are right on the threshold of launching an actual draft zoning code, which is our phase 1 zoning code. It'll affect 11,000 parcels, predominantly on major thoroughfares and transportation hubs. And so this zoning code update will not really be getting into parcels that are more deeper into our neighborhoods. That'll come in a second phase where we'll be looking deeper into the neighborhoods. But right now, we're really excited because this code change that we're going to be launching is going to be very impactful in the hopes of spurring on a lot more housing development. That's one of the key priorities. So we're really excited about that zoning code update that'll be coming out later this year. We expect to have something for the public consumption by April to get a feedback period. We've done lots and lots of work in 2023 to engage our community on the changes and the thought process going into this update. And so we'll have another comment period, and the hope is to pass the code before break of next year, or of this year, so by the end of July. Other than that, we also have been spending a lot of our resources on technology upgrades. So in building and zoning services, we handle about 55,000 permits a year, and we do approximately 100,000 inspections year after year. So it's quite a large volume. And what we've been able to do in the last 5 years is move from really maybe 10% of our work being online to now over 80% of our business is done exclusively online. So people pull permits online, they schedule inspections online, they get the results of those inspections online, and literally more than 80% of everything that we do now is trafficked through the internet and online services. We've also digitized millions of records and became completely digital in our records retention. So it used to be that if you wanted blueprints from a project that was done, more than, say, 3 years ago, those had been destroyed because we just didn't have room to keep millions of pieces of paper into, for multiple years. Well, now we've moved completely digitized, and so our records will just be in existence into perpetuity. So it's been a big help to the industry. So when they're looking for blueprints or building plans that might have been submitted, we now have those available. Another priority going into next year is just some new changes that I mentioned, licensing, weights, and measures, but there's also some programmatic things. So a number of the housing initiatives that have been passed by council in 2023, really dealing with fair housing and a number of other items for folks, those were going to be enforced by code enforcement. So we're going to be having some new code officers assigned specifically to enforcement of those new housing regulations that have been passed. We also have a new noise ordinance, and code enforcement is going to be taking a leadership role in dealing with some of those nuisance properties and some of the noise problems that we've been having that have been challenging to enforce at times. Code enforcement is going to be taking a leadership role, having folks assigned to actually go out and enforce the noise ordinance. So we're excited by those changes. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Great, so I will first I have a couple questions. I want to first turn it over to my colleagues. So, Councilmember Day-Achauer, do you have any questions? No? Great. Councilmember Wyche? Councilmember, do you have questions? Nope. Director Messer, I want to go back to Zone In. Because it is a significant change in our zoning code. As we mentioned, more than 50 years, the zoning code has not been touched. We know that this is also, it's not just an effort to update a decades-old code, but it also is we know that currently it is an impairment to moving along development. And as that directly affects our housing crisis that we're having right now. Part of the challenge with us underbuilding is just that the process just takes longer because of whether you need permits or variances or other things. The process is just, in terms of, because it's much older, it's flawed at this time. And so part of the effort for Zone In, I'm giving this soliloquy to catch folks up if they have not heard of Zone In, and you should fill in whatever I might leave out. But I want to talk about why we decided to do main kind of corridors, right, instead of going into the neighborhoods. And you alluded to this as we are, and folks are going to hear a lot more about this, but for folks who may have not been or may have heard about this just a little bit in terms of, yes, we're changing our zoning code, but what does this mean? I am also thinking about the next department up as public service, and as we think about Link Us, there is a direct correlation between these efforts. So can you just talk a little bit about why we chose to start with these larger kind of corridors along the city and what that impact is going to look like for folks?
Sure. Thank you, Council Member. I appreciate that. Just to highlight a couple of things about the Zone In initiative, you are correct. The focus on the areas that I mentioned in sort of our corridors and was definitely Link Us was one of the factors that we looked at to begin to find those places that would make the most sense. But we also looked at other transportation connectivities, job centers, looked at places where some of the best opportunities for mixed-use development and more residential, more dense housing would be available. And so we focused on those areas because we believe those areas are going to have the most impact in the short term and are also areas that are ripe for change because if you look at those 11,000 parcels, for example, thousands of those parcels already have variances on them. Mm-hmm. So the only way they were able to develop is by going through, as you said, Councilmember, sort of a lengthy variance process that takes time, and we all know time is money. And so one of the goals of Zone In definitely is to fashion a code that hopefully will require less of those variances and more availability for folks to build as a matter of right with the right development. And so the code has a lot of acknowledgement that mixed-use development, for example, is an attractive way to develop, but our code didn't actually have a mixed-use district. And so we're just catching up, with what reality actually is. And so along with standards and regulations that make sense so that folks can hopefully build, very desirable housing, especially is a goal of ours, projects going forward without that lengthy variance process.
Thank you. And then my last question is, you talked a little bit about the increase in code enforcement. You talked about the two different, one being more proactive and the one kind of being reactive to whether that's a 311 call or something else. Can you just talk a little bit about the investment in that code enforcement and the importance of that, just in terms of, again, I think as we think about having healthy neighborhoods, holding folks accountable to taking care of their properties, especially if they're being negligent with some of the lots that are so valuable for us right now that could be turned into, housing or something else. Can you just speak to why that increase and why that investment?
Yes, I can. Thank you again, Councilmember. Yeah, I would say that right now, our staffing really does allow us primarily to respond to 311 complaints. 80 to 90% of everything that we respond to comes through 311. But we do have, as I said, those 10 PACE team officers that are dedicated to more proactive initiatives. And I think what I would say is we try to see those folks as partners. We try to look at, again, we are an enforcement agency, we are a regulatory agency, but ultimately we're trying to make our neighborhoods better. And so we try to create an attitude of partnership where, yeah, we may find violations, but we're not taking people to court immediately. What we're trying to do is partner with our residents to, maybe they're not aware of some of the importance of some of the regulations that exist. And so education is a big piece of what we do. Customer service is a big function that I emphasize tremendously in our department so that our residents aren't just feeling like the weight of code and enforcement is on them all the time. We are really trying to see ourselves as partners. We partner not only with our developers and our construction folks on the permitting side, but really trying to bring that same attitude to code enforcement so that our neighborhoods can just become the best that they can be.
Perfect. Anything else? Thank you, Director Messer, and thank you again I know that the zone-in process has been a monumental effort to change how we think about zoning for a city that is growing, a city of our size, and what this means for our city, again, moving forward. And it is one of many strategies to both ensure that we are getting more housing online, moving that process along quicker. But I also think that for our residents and for folks who want to move along the process, it also is about helping in those efficiencies as well. So again, thank you for your work. And also thank you to all your code enforcement officers, because I know that is not an easy job either, and do appreciate the way that they partner with our residents to really help to problem solve together and not just really be regulators, but really how do you come to a consensus and reaching out to folks. So thank you again.
Thank you.
So next we have our Department of Public Service, and I would like to hand the floor over to our Deputy Director, Steve Wenzel. Take it away, Deputy Director.
Good afternoon, Councilmember Barroso de Padilla, Councilmember Wyche, Councilmember Day-Achauer. Thank you for this opportunity to present the highlights of the Department of Public Services proposed 2024 operating budget. The Department of Public Service is comprised of the Director's Office plus 5 divisions. We have refuse collection, mobility and parking services, infrastructure management, traffic management, and design and construction. Overall, for 2024, we have a proposed funding level of $172.2 million for the Department of Public Service, which represents a 5% increase or $9.4 million as compared to the 2023 operating budget. This overall budget will fund 894 full and part-time personnel that provide some of the most core city services, including refuse collection, which includes residential, bulk, and recycling and yard waste, maintaining and improving our roadways, fixing potholes and plowing snow, installation and maintenance of traffic signals, signage, and pavement markings to promote the safety of our citizens, publicly managed parking for both on-street and off-street facilities, and making Columbus a safer city for pedestrians and bicyclists. The Department of Public Service is funded by 5 different funding sources. Like building and zoning, over 66% of our budget is funded from other sources other than the general fund. 84.7 million or 43% is allocated from the street construction maintenance and repair fund, of which about 63% of that revenue originates from gas tax and license, auto license fees. So when you go to renew your auto license tags, part of that fee comes to the city of Columbus. The general fund supports 67.5 million, which represents 34% of our budget, mostly to support the refuse collection division and a small portion of the director's office, roughly about 957,000. We also have the construction inspection fund, which provides 13.5 million or 7% of our budget. And the private inspection fund allocates 5.4 million or 3%. And lastly, we have the mobility enterprise fund, which supports 25.9 million or 13% of our budget. So taking a closer look at each division's budget, the proposed 2024 Director's Office budget is 13.1 million, or represents 6.6% of the department's overall proposed budget. The Director's Office provides the overall coordination and policy direction for the department and manages the fiscal, human resources, community relations, asset management, and legislative processing functions, as well as support for the Linked Us initiative. By 2050, as we've mentioned in our meeting here, Central Ohio is projected to be a region of 3,150,000 people. Today, most of the people rely on getting around using vehicles. However, this is the opportunity to improve mobility options and shape how the region grows in a manner that is increase transportation reliability, manage traffic congestion, support businesses and workers, and provide access to housing, improve quality of life. Linked Us is a collaborative initiative by the City of Columbus, CODA, MORPC, and the Franklin County Board of Commissioners. Link Us is Central Ohio's transformational and comprehensive mobility and growth initiative. Link Us will create an integrated mobility system that will make it easier to walk, bike, and take public transit to our region's busiest areas. It will increase access to jobs, schools, and health care for all members of the community. This includes seniors, veterans, people with disabilities, students, and working families. Although most of the city's obligation for the Linked Us program is funded via the capital budget, I believe in 2023 we allocated about $18 million, and we're projecting roughly $2 million to be budgeted in 2025. The support functions of that initiative come out of our operating fund, so that's staff time. Some of the contracts that we enter into to do some of our outreach comes out of our operating fund. In 2024, the Division of Refuse Collections proposed funding level of $66.7 million, all from the general fund, represents a decrease of roughly $659,000 or 1% under the 2023 operating budget, which included some one-time expenses to get our new waste and reuse convenience centers up and running last year. So those were one-time expenses to where we bought some vehicles, some dumpsters, some like little office space or sheds for the people that are working the centers. So these were one-time costs last year, so they didn't get included in this year's budget, but that's why there's a slight decrease. This proposed funding level will support 240 full-time personnel who provide trash collection services to more than 344,000 households every week, 52 weeks a year. Thanks to Mayor Ginther's leadership, the 2024 budget continues the weekly recycling and biweekly yard waste program with a total budget allocation of $16.9 million. That's roughly $10.9 million associated with recycling and $6 million for yard waste. In June 2023, the recycling program went from biweekly to weekly. We collected about 32,515 tons of materials that were diverted from the landfill through residential recycling. This resulted in about a 10% increase over the 2022 year. We expect weekly recycling service will increase the amount of collected materials next year, or this year, by 20% over the course of this year. It'll assist the division with the initiative to be carbon neutral by the year 2050, and that's the cornerstone of the city's climate action plan. In 2024, we will be investing an additional $2.2 million to continue to tackle illegal dumping. This includes additional solid waste inspectors to educate residents on proper waste disposal and to prosecute cases of illegal dumping in the city. Of the 240 full-time personnel, this budget will fund 26 staff members dedicated to support the Clean Neighborhoods Initiative to address the persistent problem of illegal dumping in our neighborhoods. This includes continuing to advance policies like continued replacement of 300-gallon refuse containers with 90-gallon containers, increased staffing numbers to crews dedicated to solid waste inspection and alley cleanup, and continuing to utilize the installation of cameras and working with the Department of Public Safety to capture and prosecute illegal dumpers. This budget also allocates $368,000 for additional funds for the new litter response team. This new team represents 4 individual city employees dedicated to litter pickups. They focus on public right-of-ways ahead of our mowing crews to pick up the debris. So when our mowing crews come through, they're not scattering that debris into a million different pieces. And it also adds additional capacity in our public spaces like streets, sidewalks, and alleys to pick up litter. Also included in this budget proposal is $1.3 million for continued funding of the 2 waste and reuse convenience centers at Alum Creek and Georgesville Road. These resources will be available for residents of Columbus to discard overflow trash, recyclables, bulk items, food waste, and yard waste. The 2024 proposed budget for mobility and parking services is approximately $24.3 million, an increase of 21% or roughly $4.2 million. Most of this increase is associated with more debt service charges for the Starling and Astor Park garages that was over the 2023 budget, as well as the addition of the garage management cost for the Astor Park garage, which will be fully operational this year. The Division of Mobility and Parking Services is responsible for the administration, enforcement, operations, and management of both on-street and off-street parking in the city of Columbus, and is funded by the Mobility Enterprise Fund. The Mobility Enterprise is responsible for providing high-quality parking experience in the city by supplying a holistic management of on-street and off-street parking assets under one system to increase access in high-demand parking areas across the city. The Division of Infrastructure Management's 2024 total proposed budget request is approximately $43.6 million, an increase of 6.2% or $2.6 million, all within the Street Construction Maintenance and Repair Fund. The Division of Infrastructure Management is responsible for delivering all services related to managing the transportation, infrastructure, pavement, and structures management, right-of-way permit reviews, and long-range planning. The division provides street maintenance services within City of Columbus rights-of-way, including street sweeping, litter control, graffiti removal, and snow and ice removal. This budget also includes $1 million to design and construct ADA-compliant curb ramps throughout the city. As we move into our core winter season, our snow warriors are ready. Not too soon, since we're expecting snow tonight and tomorrow. Our snow warriors treat and plow approximately 4,600 lane miles of streets during winter weather events, including highways within the city, multi-lane arterial roads, rural-like roadways, urban residential streets. The department has enhanced the city's snow and ice control plan to get more plows into neighborhoods sooner with heavy snowfalls when it is forecasted in the weather. Using trained auxiliary city staff as operators, a pilot program will help deploy plow equipment pickup trucks to residential streets as soon as snowfall of 4 or more inches is predicted. And we have upgraded our digital Warrior Watch tool, which allows residents to check on the service status of their street during winter weather events. Also this winter season, funding in the amount of $250,000 is allocated for the division to hire private snow contractors to help with snow and ice control on our city streets, mostly concentrating on our residential areas. And finally, the division has increased efforts to partner with our suburban communities on intergovernmental agreements to remove snow on city streets where it makes sense. The Division of Traffic Management is making our streets safer for motorists, pedestrians, and bicyclists. The division's 2024 total proposed budget is $24.5 million, all within the Street Construction Maintenance and Repair Fund. This represents approximately a 4.9% increase or $1.1 million over the 2023 budget. The Division of Traffic Management is responsible for planning, educating, and advocating for greater mobility of the various roadway users to ensure a safe and efficient transportation system for pedestrians, bicyclists, and vehicular traffic, as well as improving neighborhood livability and safety. Included in this year's budget proposal is continuing the installation, replacement, and/or refurbishment of traffic signals in the amount of $3.6 million and $2 million for the division's traffic commodities, which includes permanent pavement markings, traffic signage, school signs, and traffic signal parts. The Vision Zero Columbus initiative is focused on ending crash-related fatalities and serious injuries on our streets, while increasing the safe and healthy and equitable mobility for all. More than 50 people die each year in traffic crashes in Columbus streets. Vision Zero commits to protecting lives above all other objectives of our transportation system. Regardless of where you live or how you travel around the community, you have the right to return home safe. Traffic crashes are not accidents, they are preventable. Vision Zero fundamentally changes the approach to traffic safety by taking a holistic look at our transportation system, using input from our local government agencies, institutions, and residents to prioritize safety for all users, including motorists, bicyclists, pedestrians, and transit riders. The Vision Zero Columbus Action Plan outlines specific actions and strategies focused on eliminating traffic fatalities, and serious injuries in our city. Saving lives and getting to zero will take all of us. The capital budget includes $5.6 million committed to implementing this action plan. Like I mentioned, while a majority of the funding of the Vision Zero initiative comes from the capital budget, the costs to support the initiative, like personnel cost, contract costs, supplies, things of that nature, as well as some of the planning staff, are funded through our operating budget. Roughly about $511,000 goes to support that initiative out of the operating funds. The Division of Design and Construction's 2024 total proposed budget is $24.9 million. This represents approximately a 4.3% or $1 million increase over 2023. The Division of Design and Construction is responsible for developing quality construction plans, managing design contracts, and enabling the department to build and maintain a safe and efficient transportation system. In addition, the division manages construction contracts, providing quality and timely construction inspection, surveying, and materials testing services in support of public service, public utility, and privately funded infrastructure construction projects. That concludes my presentation of the 2024 Department of Public Service proposed operating budget. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Deputy Director. I have a couple questions before I hand it over to my colleagues. And one is, we've been having lots of conversations about Link Us. We'll continue to have those conversations. It is our investment in helping to move people more safely, more efficiently. It is dedicated bus lanes. It is along specific corridors. And we have had conversations that even if you don't, in addition to Link Us bringing, a bus rapid transit system, it also helps to bring major infrastructure changes. So things like dedicated bike lanes and shared use path, et cetera. And even if you're not along those corridors, if you are in some of the offshoots, you will see some of those improvements as well. Can you talk just a little bit about, we have this effort with Link Us. We also have Vision Zero, which is a top priority for us. And again, that is the goal that there are 0 serious injuries or fatalities due to traffic crashes. How are we reconciling that with, let's say I don't live on a Link Us corridor. Let's say I don't live off the offshoot of a Link Us corridor. My street is somewhere on the high injury network, or I live near that. Can you talk a little bit about some of the infrastructure investments that we're making and how we prioritize those investments across the city so that when folks are seeing some of these big projects that we're having that, Link Us is going to take us many years to build to what the full plan calls for in terms of the 5 corridors, but can you just talk about how do we prioritize making investments in some of the areas? We see this on Cleveland Avenue right now. We see it, again, we reference Hamilton Road, Livingston Avenue. Can you just talk a little bit about how the department makes those
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember. Let alone, we have a significant investment where we're going to be making a Link Us over the next few years. I mean, we'll have these high-speed transit corridors, but we need to get people to those corridors in a safe and efficient manner. So to support the Vision Zero initiatives that we have. So if it's biking, if it's riding my car to a park and share and then jumping on a bus, if it's walking, we need to make it a safe environment. So there will be significant investments, and we are planning for that. But we're also looking at major safety issues that are going on across the city, and we're prioritizing those through our Vision Zero initiative. Like you were mentioning, Councilmember, the Livingston Avenue corridor, Cleveland Avenue corridor. We're currently making significant investments to design improvements to those corridors to make them more safer, make them more mobile for our citizens. So it's kind of twofold. So we have to choose investment with Link Us that we need to get people to, but also keep people safe outside of that environment also.
And then can you also give folks a little bit of an update on Bike Plus? So Bike Plus is our biking plan, but how we are also ensuring that we are keeping, again, we want to give folks multi-modes of transportation. So there's a bus, but if you're scooting, if you're walking, if you're cycling in the city, we want to ensure that you're safe. So can you just talk a little bit about what are our efforts to ensuring that we are taking care of folks, even if you're not, like, as you said, whether you are getting to that bus or you're taking other modes of transportation to school, to work, to run errands, et cetera?
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember. Yeah, the Bike Plus plan is really kind of an update of our old bicentennial bikeway plan that was done years ago. And when we were looking at that years ago, we were looking at bikes. I mean, that was the major mode of transportation other than cars and buses and things of that nature that we were using within the city. Well, that's kind of evolved over the last few years where you're saying we have scooters, we have e-bikes, we have regular bikes, so we're trying to update that plan through Bike Plus to adapt to those different mobility options that we have that are coming on board throughout the city. Even trying to think of things that we're not thinking of yet. Maybe it could be a motorized skateboard, things to keep people safe within the right-of-way, either through, dedicated bike lanes or a shared use path. It's something of that nature. So we are updating that plan to be more inclusive of the different mobility options.
And again, I just want to I want to address folks' concerns that, we can kind of walk and chew gum at the same time, right? So as we're making these like larger infrastructure changes to accommodate for Link Us, that folks can rest assured that if you are further on the outskirts, or if you were someplace else, that those infrastructure changes are coming to you as well. It's not like all of our attention is diverted to the larger projects, but that we are ensuring that we are still taking away at some of the projects that we have that are coming online that we know are going to take us a little longer to get there, but that we are addressing those as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, neighborhoods are the key. So we are addressing those as well. I mean, it's not just a matter of keeping bikes safe and also keeping motorists safe, because there are intersections, there's things of that nature that are still dangerous that need to be updated, and we are planning for making those changes as well in the future. So it's affecting everyone, not just mobility options, so.
Thank you. And I know, transportation, public service and transportation is something that has been near and dear to my heart, and we've been talking a lot about, and this is a priority of mine. As we continue to talk about Link Us, folks will hear more and more about that. But this is certainly something that I think we hear about a lot. I think especially after the pandemic, where folks, we're not on the roads. I think we got a little rusty. We've been putting some new tools on the road, flashing beacons and crosswalks that ensure that our pedestrians have more time to cross and giving them the right of way before anyone turns. But we understand that we need to invest in more of a campaign to ensure that folks know how to use those tools. And that is part of our Vision Zero plan that we are now in the third phase of. And so there'll be more that will be coming out around our campaign and our education campaign around Vision Zero and Link Us. But I just want to rest assured that folks understand the strategies. I will say the unfortunate truth about public service and transportation is that many of these projects just take much longer than is satisfying for any of us. But our office is working with the department to set aside significant dollars that we can put in short-term solution, well, longer term. What I mean by short-term, they could be a couple years, why we wait for the 7 or 8 years for the bigger solution to come along, but that we are working on making those investments in our infrastructure as well. I want to hand it over to Chair Wyche, who is chairing sustainability and refuse and recycling as part of that. I know you had some questions before we go over to Councilmember Day-Achauer. Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember, and thank you, Deputy Director Wenzel, for being here and presenting on the public service budget. I also want to say thank you for the work being done to address illegal dumping. It is top of mind for our residents, evident by the fact that I was on the job maybe 8 hours before I got my first resident comment related to illegal dumping. So I just want to ask if you could share any data on how these efforts have helped to reduce illegal dumping in our alleyways.
Thank you, Councilmember. Yeah, I think the biggest impact I think that we've seen, and we've had some of these discussions early on, that removing the 300-gallon containers out of the alley and switching those to 90-gallon containers have made the biggest impact that we've been seeing. Those 300 gallons have been a magnet for illegal dumping activities. So we've seen some good successes in those areas where we have switched those out. We continue to do that this year. We hope to be fully converted to all 90 gallons by, I believe it's the fourth quarter of this year. So we hope to see even more success. I know I've looked at some additional figures. I believe for illegal dumping in 2022, it's decreased from 2022 to 2023 by 8,000 tons. So we know what we're doing is working. That's a 5% decrease. I mean, it's not the best, and we continue to work on making those improvements. But what we are doing is helping. As far as some of the individuals, we know there's a lot of small bad actors out there that we're trying to work with our colleagues in public safety to prosecute and assess fines to through Title 13 to kind of put some of that at bay. But we are seeing a lot of good success in removing the 300 gallons to 90 gallons.
Thank you. And just a quick follow-up. You talked about increasing recycling pickup, which went over very well in my household. We always found that we had more recycling than we had trash, and so the weekly pickup was definitely beneficial for us. Have you seen any change in the amount of trash being collected, just kind of with that increase?
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember. I'll kind of address that twofold. So we have seen an increase in our recycling materials also. So we went to weekly starting in, I believe it was June or July, like mid-June, July timeframe, to start collecting weekly. So we did see a 10% increase overall for the year. But for that last 6 months, we saw more of like a 16, 17% increase in recycled materials. So with that being, we know that we have reduced items going to the landfill because it's being recycled now. Like you're mentioning that since it's being picked up weekly, you're probably recycling more nowadays because I know some individuals, when their bin got full, they didn't have anything to do with it. They would throw it in the trash can, then it went to the landfill. So we're seeing that uptick too. But we're also seeing our overall numbers going down for refuse collection, for trash. Just for some figures, trash has decreased by about 10,000 tons in the last year. And it's kind of two things that I attribute to that. Some of it is the weekly recycling that's bringing down those numbers, but it's also the coming out of the effects of COVID. We noticed during COVID that there was a huge uptick in trash consumption because more people at home, more people were creating trash, and it was going more into the landfill. So as more people have gone back to work, we've seen those numbers come back. So that's kind of been offsetting our trash collection as well. So roughly around the 10,000 ton figure is what we're seeing it coming down.
Appreciate that. And we know that recycling and trash is really just one component of sustainability, but one in which residents can kind of truly play a role in on on a daily basis. One question I did want to ask, in terms of the budget, does it include funding for education on recycling? I think there are components that some of us still aren't aware of what can be recycled and how we're supposed to recycle. I'm just curious if that is something, an element that has been included in this year's budget.
Thank you, Councilmember. Yeah, we started actually right before doing weekly recycling, doing a campaign to teach people, let alone about weekly recycling, but what to recycling, and hitting some of our target areas that we're seeing some of the lower performance in recycling, as well as more education, more outreach to tell people what they can do. So yes, we do have money that's carrying over from last year that we will continue to use this year, as well as additional funds this year to support that effort.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now, Councilmember Day-Achauer.
Yes, thank you, Councilmember. Deputy Director, I have a couple of questions for you. One is just a follow-up to Vision Zero. What do the timelines for completion of these projects tend to look like? And is there any way to expedite the implementation for particularly dangerous intersections?
Thank you, Councilmember. We kind of got to look at what the project entails and what kind of a project is it. As Councilmember Barroso de Padilla mentioned, there's some quick fixes that we've been doing and working with Vision Zero. If it's a matter of adding bump outs or doing additional striping at certain intersections to help slow down the traffic and make it more visual for motorists to see that there is an actual intersection, we've gone along and implemented those in the last year or two. There are larger projects when we're talking about a major intersection improvement that will need to be designed, that'll need to potentially have right-of-way acquisition associated with it, and then construction. So we're talking about longer-term fixes there. But we are looking at some of our higher injury intersections to look at maybe some quick fixes we can do in a 1 to 2 year period while we are designing and while we're acquiring right-of-way for the bigger infrastructure improvement project.
Okay, thank you. The second question is a safety concern that I've been hearing from residents in regards to pavement markings. There are a lot of pavement markings that are so faded that it's difficult to see them at night, particularly at night in the rain. What is the schedule for redoing those pavement markings so that people can travel more safely at night and especially on rainy nights?
Thank you, Councilmember. Yeah, we allocate roughly $2 million a year just to support pavement markings, signage, permanent pavement markings, as well as some of the other ones that wear off more quickly. But so we try to get those on a continuous schedule. If it's a 5 to 6 to 7 year schedule that we are going out and replacing those, we suggest that definitely if people are feeling a safety issue, to call 311. Our traffic team will go out and take a look at it. We do a lot of this work in-house, so we can get out there and just respond to those 311s quickly. And it's really a big part of our Vision Zero initiative to get those pavement markings updated to the current technology. Some of them are older and need updated to some of the newer technologies that we're using.
Yep. Thank you, Deputy Director. That's all for me, Councilmember Barroso de Padilla.
Thank you, Councilmember, and thank you again, Deputy Director, for that very thorough. I think especially with the public service, there's so many divisions underneath of it, and it's such large budgets. I know it sometimes can be a little confusing for folks, so thank you for sharing that, and thank you again for the work that you do and for being good partners. Next up, we have the Department of Recreation and Parks, and I would like to introduce Director Reese and Elaine Hostetler. Did I do that? Yes. So, Director, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, council members, Barroso de Padilla, Wyche, and Day-Achauer. It is a pleasure being here as we present the 2024 budget. Just prior to me starting, I would like to address just warming centers briefly, and that is we do have a policy for our warming centers. It is basically based on having 5 centers open. This past weekend, we had 5 centers open with only 1 center to serve 20, 3 centers serving 0, and 1 center serving 3. We also pulled numbers from previous years, and that was 22. Just to look at those numbers, there were 0 that attended on December 24th, which was Christmas Eve of 22. And then on December 23rd of 22, we had 5 at Thompson, 0 at Dodge, 4 at Barnett, 0 at Linden, 1 at Marion Franklin. Due to the numbers we looked at, we reached out and made sure that we communicated not only just with the media and social media press release, but we also communicated this information across the board to the shelter board, the community shelter board, to make sure they were aware that we were closing 4 of our centers due to low numbers and that we would remain open with Thompson on Monday. And that center did remain open. We had over 50 people to come in and out of that particular site location. So I wanted to address that so that you all would hear that right up front. If there's any other questions, feel free to try and answer questions as much as we can according to our policy and documentation that we have. As you know, our fiscal manager, Elaine Hostetler, is here as she will present our 2024 budget request.
Good afternoon. The Columbus Rec and Parks Department's mission is to connect the people of our community through the power of nature, wellness, and creativity. The department oversees more than 400 parks, 32 community centers and specialty facilities, 5 athletic complexes, 6 golf courses, 9 pools, 230 miles of trails, and more. Each year, we serve roughly 2 million residents and rely on the support of nearly 14,000 volunteers. In 2023, we served over 246,000 summer meals to youth and served as an important resource for reducing crime and violence through prevention and intervention strategies. The department's goal is to ensure every resident has access to all of our many services. With this mission, along with the objectives set forth in the 2019 through 2024 strategic plan, our programs and services are critical to ensuring Columbus remains America's opportunity city. For the 2024 budget year, we're requesting a total budget of $74,135,000. This is an 11% increase over 2023. The components funding the 2024 budget are the following: a general fund transfer or target amount of $56,325,000, projected revenues for the department of $16.9 million, and projected prior year encumbrance cancellations of $900,000. The proposed 2024 budget will provide funding for the following expenses. 71% of our budget expenses will go towards personnel expenses, which will fund 438 full-time and 1,700 part-time authorized positions. 5% of our budget will fund materials and supplies for the department. 21% will support services needed by the department. And 3% will fund other expenses, which includes $1.5 million in summer youth programming grants, which will be awarded to local nonprofits. Our budget request includes a modest expansion for our APPS Center Without Walls, or CWOW program, totaling $258,800. This program offers much-needed recreational opportunities, including after-school programs for youth in neighborhoods that do not have a community center within safe walking distance. CWOW includes after-school, pop-up events, and summer camp programming. Group games, art, nature, field trips, education, and more are all part of the program makeup. The ages range from 6 to 13 years old. In 2023, we leveraged partnerships with Columbus City Schools and the Boys and Girls Club to allow for additional programming, resulting in expanding after-school registration and participation by 38%. Alongside the Teen Impact After-School Program and the City Leaders Academy, the CWOW team impacted the lives of over 18,000 youth in 14 zip codes across the city. An expansion will fund salaries for 3 additional full-time staff, expanding the full-time team to a total of 8 staff. The additional supplies and services, allowing us to serve more youth. CWOW currently serves the east and west sides of the city at 4 locations, and the goal is to mirror those services in the north and south sides of Columbus. The overarching goal is to be in every quadrant of the city, especially the communities that are underserved or are facing high crime or economic lulls. The department provides many important programs and services that are essential to the quality of life of the residents. We are requesting continued support for these critical programs. I'd like to highlight a few of those programs. The department has created a new conservation program in 2023 to align all of our internal resources and expertise in this area. Preserving and protecting our natural environment enhances the quality of life for residents. This work is now more critical as we anticipate the region to grow significantly in the coming decades. 5 full-time positions have been funded for the new program. Additional funding would allow us to expand current and implement new conservation, educational, and recreational programming. It will also allow us to integrate the natural resource and property asset management program into one that focuses on environmental education and recreation. Celebrating Columbus's culture and offering opportunities for residents to come together creates a stronger community. Funding for our special events program will allow us to increase the number of events hosted and the number of neighborhoods served. It will also address increased costs for performers, allowing us to bring in more national acts and put Columbus on the national stage. The APPS Job Readiness Program enriches the lives of youth and young adults aged 14 to 23 by connecting them to services and programs focused on life skills development, character development, career preparation, and more. This program employed 287 youth during the summer of 2023, 92 of which are still employed by the department in our new year-round program. The Go Lunch program offers free lunches during the summer, ensuring youth have access to nutritious meals when school is out. The team also hosts free mobile produce markets throughout much of the year. The department also offers specialized and recreational programming. Therapeutic recreation offers inclusion support that enables youth with disabilities to participate alongside their peers in summer camps and offers adaptive after-school and recreational programming. The outdoor recreation program, which is now a part of our conservation team, connects residents to the natural world through education and recreational activities such as boating, fishing, archery, and hiking. This budget will expand programming inside the department's facilities as well as Columbus neighborhoods. The Urban Forestry Master Plan, or UFMP, as we call it, prioritizes, preserves, and grows the city's trees and seeks to double the city's tree canopy. Expansions to the UFMP program have allowed us to increase the number of public trees planted each year by approximately 1,000 trees. It also supported the development of the new Public Tree Code, an updated code, Section 912, that increases protections for public trees. Violence intervention programs help reduce violence by redirecting youth to positive activities through the Reroute program and supporting victims of violence to achieve recovery through the award-winning Voice program. This work is critical to ensuring a safe Columbus. 97% of participants have not been re-injured due to violent crime. And continuing the city's support for the Franklin Park Conservatory and the King Arts Complex will allow these organizations to continue offering program. As our vision states, we're focused on creating a socially equitable city. All of our work focuses on ensuring our programs and facilities are all welcoming to all. We ask that you support our budget as proposed. Doing so will allow us to continue the work that's critical to lifting up residents and building a strong quality of life for everyone. Thank you for your time today. We can answer any questions you have.
Sorry. So first, I'm going to yield the floor to our chair. Yeah, I know. I was just looking at you. I'm going to yield the floor to our chair. Council Chair Day-Achauer, we'll start with your questions and then we'll move on to Councilmember Wyche.
Thank you, Councilmember. My first question is in regards to expanding programming. The CWOW sounds absolutely amazing. But what are you doing to expand services and recreation centers throughout the city in underserved areas, specifically areas such as west of 270, where there is a total absence of rec and park programming?
Chair Day-Achauer, we are looking at how do we expand when we don't have facilities or infrastructure. So what we're doing is partnering with organizations that may not have an affiliation with the city, but have nonprofit affiliations, their own private affiliations. So we are partnering with individuals. We're looking at how do we program in some of our parks. And that is some of our pop-up events. That's why we have Centers Without Walls, our CWOW. We're going to those locations and just doing programming for a day, trying to provide programs that, because we don't have facilities. So that's some of the areas that we're really looking at. We're also partnering with Columbus City Schools. And that is making sure that sometimes we're going out, not just in after-school programming, but also with special events, showing up and making sure that we provide some programming in areas that we don't have a facility.
I would like to remind you that there are parts of the city of Columbus where there are no Columbus City School buildings, specifically west of 270. Our outer belt communities do not have buildings that are part of Columbus City Schools. So that's not an option. It would be partnering with our suburban school districts.
Well,
have you been reaching out to them?
Well, Chair, let me just address, I mentioned parks. We have a master plan for Alcar Park, which is west of 270. It is a park that we're looking at coming in, doing some trails. We're looking at a shelter house. We're looking at playground. We're looking at some wetland marsh areas coming into that park. So there's a master plan for that particular park. And that's why I would say some of the places, it's not just necessarily schools, but it is parks that we can go in and we can provide programming and special events in those areas that don't necessarily have infrastructure.
Okay, that park's been 10 years in the making, so I'm looking forward to actually having it completed. But I look forward to seeing extensive programming such as you have with your CWAO programs in areas outside of 270, because our residents there have children that need programming too.
I agree.
But I just really want to emphasize that. But really, congratulations on the incredible program you are doing with CWOW. It's a great concept and it has so much potential. And I just look forward to seeing that throughout the city. My second question is really just kind of a follow-up on what you've already mentioned, is about the situation with the warming centers. There was communication issues. The departments apparently knew about it, but getting the information out to the residents who lack housing in the city so that they were aware of what centers were open, which ones were being closed. Do you have any recommendations or ideas, brainstorming kind of things on how we could better communicate with residents because they're not watching the TV? Partner, maybe community partners that could help disseminate that information?
When we work with the Community Shelter Board, those are a lot of the partners. And so not only is it just the media, but they're the ones that's reaching out to our faith-based organizations, to our libraries, to some of our nonprofit shelter homes to get the message out through word of mouth. And so it's not just television and media and social media, but it is working with the Community Shelter Board, making sure that it's reaching out beyond just an electronic technology device.
Thank you. Yeah, I think just our system overall, not just you, but because there's so many different partners, that we need to come up with a better way of communicating, a better way of setting up these warming centers so that they're more helpful. And that's not a critique of you, that's a critique of the system at large, that we just need to find a way to do better.
Thank you.
And thank you so much, Director, for your presentation. And that's all from me, Councilmember Barroso de Padilla.
Thank you, Chair. Director, I do have one question before I hand it over to Councilmember Wyche. My wonder, when this particular instance is, I know that we looked at the data in terms of last year. Mm-hmm. The challenge that I would challenge us all, right, is that we see this with public service. If we looked at public service numbers in terms of last winter and this winter, we had a weather event on Christmas last year. We had no snow until just the other day, right? And so if we look at the weather patterns, they're consistently changing. We've had the same thing, I think it was last summer, where we had an incredible heat wave. That was unpredictable. If we would have looked at June for the past 3 years, we might not have had a peak in weather the same way that we did. I'm just picking June as a day. So my wonder is, how do we start to become more nimble to not just look at the data, because I don't think that's really going to tell us the information that we need to make a responsible decision to decide to open the warming center or not. And so I guess that my question to you is, what is the takeaway that we knew that this was like an extreme event? I look at public service, once, I don't know, like November hits, I'm like, all right, we're getting ready here. Like, what do we look at? And they're looking at the forecast for the weather literally 2 weeks ahead of time, so they know if something is coming in. So my wonder is, how can we change some of our practices so that we can be a little bit more nimble, especially if we're going to have these centers that are open for our residents, that we can say, if in 2 weeks we know there's a weather event coming, do we have the staff, do we have the resources? And to the point that the chair was making, can we start communicating early on if we don't think all the centers are going to be open? So my wonder is, did you go through that process as a department to then say, how can we make this better? And then how can we also be good partners in helping to either resource that, or helping to get the word out, or helping with what that plan looks like for the future?
So Councilwoman Barroso de Padilla, I will share that we normally look at it in advance.
Okay.
Today, we were already addressing what this weekend looks like, and what do we have to do for our programming. We have programming over the weekend. And so we opened up the very first day to make sure, because first of all, it is about serving, making sure that people are safe. When we had low numbers, I think that's when we looked at where do we open with the most impact. So we do open all. We don't just open some on that first day. We want to make sure we open all, because we want to make sure that we're serving. But when we had low numbers on a consistent basis, then that's when we looked at it and said, let's reach out to not just the Community Shelter Board, but also the other streams of media that we could really address, that we're going to open up at this one location and not the other 4.
Okay.
So, but it is something I think that we need to look at, and I say not just our department. I think overall, all of us need to address it and look at how do we serve better I would say our individuals that need warming during this time.
Yes.
Yep.
No, thank you for that. And I think, I think when we have instances like this, where whether it's miscommunication, whatever the circumstances may be, it gives us an opportunity to pause and think about, how can we do things better? And then how can we work together so that we are ensuring that we are addressing the needs of our residents, and, the next big weather event that happens, or the next emergency, that we're just getting better and better at it. And, I think we've had, even since I've been on council, our response has been a little all over the place. And so it's just something that we need to continue to get better at, because, especially with the temperatures as low as they were, it was dangerously low. And so we want to ensure that, whether it's dangerously low or not, we just want to invest in the health of our residents. So thank you for that response. And, I think even with now our new chair, this is something that I'm committed to. We have to get better at, Councilmember Wyche, you've talked about this being your platform. We're only going to continue to see colder winters and hotter summers. And so this is something that we need to get ahead of as a city, because it's only going to get worse for our folks, especially as we're looking at our housing crisis and folks who are truly the most vulnerable. So, Councilmember, do you have questions?
You literally stole the words out of my mouth, so I appreciate that one. Director Reese, appreciate you being here and your comments regarding the warming centers. I think it's just a lesson learned for us to continue to have additional conversation about what that policy looks like.
Yes.
As Councilmember Barroso de just mentioned, these extreme weather events are likely to be the new norm going forward. And so we can't be dependent on, low numbers as how we make this policy going forward. Okay. Consistency is key. I'd rather a center be open and no one show up, and than a center be closed and one person show up. Okay. It's about the people and supporting them and ensuring that we can have their back in moments like this. So, more conversation to come on that. Appreciate you speaking to that. And I know it's coordination between all of our agencies, all of our departments, and our nonprofit partners. You just happen to be here today when we have an opportunity to speak to you. I wanted to just hear a little bit more about the department's conservation efforts. I was actually really surprised to learn about some of that work, and just wanted to highlight some of that for our residents. And if you guys can just dive a little deeper in some of the programming that is happening around our conservation efforts.
Let me just give you a little information. In April 2023, the department basically looked at how do we integrate staff from 3 different sections to create the conservation section. We felt it was so important to do that. Within that integration, we made way for efforts to create one section, which comprised of 3 different strategic intents: natural resources, infield conservation management, and outdoor education and recreation. It's now the goal: increase information, knowledge of our nature preserves, the habitat, features, and opportunities for park users, research, preservation, and expansion. We piloted a new outdoor education and recreation kit model throughout our community centers, and that goal was to provide all 29 centers with kits by the end of 2025, so that all communities have the opportunities for outdoor experiences such as hiking, fishing, birding, scavenger hunts, educational learning, and conservation plants, animals, and the environment. Our habitat restoration and management goal is to create a stewardship program that offers buy-in for community members to support the observing, the reporting, the overall training of the habitat spaces. There's so much more to this, as just 2 months ago, we had a outdoor recreation education event just for females. And that was youth females, and so they got a chance to go hiking, they got a chance to experience boating, they got a chance to experience some archery. So we're looking at how do we teach and educate individuals, not just our youth, but I think this is a citywide. How do we educate the city on natural preserves and basically the environmental education piece?
Thank you. It's so exciting. I think sometimes it's lost, the natural wonders of our parks and our forests when you grow up in the city, and it's important that we continue to provide those opportunities and programs to expose our residents to them. So thank you for highlighting that work. And that was it for me, Councilmember.
Thank you. Thank you, Director. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for being here today. And thank you again. One thing I do want to say about recreation and parks, well, there's lots of things, but I also loved that there was so much joy in your presentation, because when I think about as a latchkey kid, the rec center was where I spent most of my days. I always love hearing the work of the department and all of the effort and the intentionality at each one of our centers, and thinking about our center directors and all of the love and intention that they put into our kids and our residents and all the folks who go in and out of our centers every day. I also have a potential lifeguard at my house that I can't wait for. Yeah, so we can talk offline about that. That lifeguarding program, I heard the other day that it helped put someone through college, and my ears perked up. So thank you again. And now, thank y'all for being so incredibly patient. We will move to our last department and all of the folks who are here with us today. We will move to the Department of Public Utilities. I want to introduce Deputy Director John Lee and Elaine Shockey. So I will save my soliloquy, give you the floor, and then we can have a conversation. So please take it away.
Good afternoon, council members. Thank you for this opportunity to present the 2024 operating budgets of the Department of Public Utilities and the Office of Sustainable Columbus. My name is John Lee, Deputy Director at the Department of Public Utilities, and with me is Elena Shockey, Deputy Director of the Office of Sustainable Columbus. Today we will co-present our budget testimony. The department's 2024 budget totals $819 million and is a 9% increase above our 2023 budget. Our budget provides funding for 4 divisions: water, sewers and drains, stormwater, and power. It also includes funding for our Director's Office and the Office of Sustainable Columbus. The budget includes funding for 1,370 full-time personnel. These budgeted 2024 dollars will allow us to continue fulfilling DPU's mission of providing essential utility services to residents and businesses in the Columbus region. Through our commitment to the Climate Action Plan, we are also empowering our community to thrive through sustainable resources, programming, and policy. Our priorities for 2024 are to focus on organizational culture, operational optimization, equity, innovation, and environmental stewardship. I will highlight each division's budget and some areas where our budgeting increases are due to some program expansions, inflationary pressures, and increased debt service costs. Our Director's Office 2024 budget totals $45.3 million, as a 19% above the 2023 budget. The Director's Office is supported by an allocation percentage from each of the divisions. The office provides overall direction and strategy for the department and includes several sections such as fiscal, human resources, customer service, technology, regulatory compliance, safety, public information, and emergency preparedness. Personnel is the largest expense for the Director's Office budget, coming in at 58%. In 2024, we have 257 full-time personnel budgeted. During 2024, we plan to start the migration to a new customer billing system with an enhanced payment portal and additional bill payment options. We're also upgrading our work and asset management system in 2024 to a new GIS-based system where we'll store our work orders, service requests, inventory, and asset information. In 2024, our Customer Service Center will continue to work with our low-income and senior ratepayers to get them signed up with our discount programs and rate relief program. For our Division of Stormwater, this division provides effective stormwater collection services to the community within the corporate limits of Columbus. Overall, the 2024 stormwater budget totals $46 million and is 6.67% higher than the 2023 budget. The stormwater budget includes funding for 25 full-time personnel. Of the total budget, 65% supports operating and maintenance costs, and 35% goes towards debt service. In 2024, stormwater rates increased 1% to provide continued revenue to support operation expenses and debt service costs. Over 59% of the stormwater budget, or $27 million, funds internal service payments to the Department of Public Service for street cleaning services, to the Division of Sewers and Drains for engineering services, and as well as stormwater maintenance services. Budgeted personnel levels at $2.4 million will allow us to maintain our commitment to EPA to increase our compliance prevention of harmful pollutants from being washed into storm sewers and local rivers. For our Division of Water, the total budget is $245 million and is a 6.69% increase above 2023 budget. Operations and maintenance expenses are increasing 9.5%, while debt service expenses are increasing 3.5%. Debt service expenses are 45% of the overall budget and cover annual principal and interest payments used for bonded debt and loan payments for our capital improvement projects. These debt service costs are largely for existing debt we have issued for projects within the last few years, specifically to cover the major improvements at our water plants and water line rehab projects. In 2024, water rates increased 5% to provide continued revenue to support operations expenses and debt service costs related to our capital plan. The 2024 budget will support a total of 503 full-time positions in the Division of Water. Additional positions are being added to support our enhanced metering program, water's regulatory compliance team, and we are starting the hiring process for staff for our future fourth water plant. In 2024, we will also continue design of our fourth water plant and the transmission line. We will also continue our installation of AMI smart meters for both residential and commercial customers. Finally, we're in the process of building a new turnkey water residuals processing facility at the Division of Water. For the Division of Sewers and Drains, the total budget is $372 million and is an 11.9% increase above 2023. Operations and maintenance expenses are budgeted 14.5% higher than 2023, and debt service costs are increasing above 2023 levels, approximately 10%. Overall, Sewers and Drains total budget, 39% goes towards operations and maintenance, while 61% goes towards debt service. Budgeted debt service is used to pay back the principal and interest on bonds and loans we use to support our major capital program. Our capital program is largely driven by EPA regulatory requirements and our consent orders. In 2024, Blueprint Columbus will continue in neighborhoods to eliminate the source of sewer overflows and basement backups. In 2024, sewer rates increased 5% to provide continued revenue to support operations expenses and debt service costs related to our capital plan. In 2024, we will be studying our capacity to provide water reuse services, and we will continue our program of 100% beneficial reuse of sewer residuals. We will also continue planning for growth and capacity at the Southerly Wastewater Treatment Facility to serve the region's growing capacity needs. Finally, our Division of Powers budget is set at $109 million and is 2.57% higher than the 2023 budget. Budgetary increases are due to purchase power cost increases, increased use of service contracts for new service connections and repairs, additional capital outlay for needed equipment, and additional debt service compared to prior years. Budgeted purchase power costs are increasing 2.8% above 2023 levels to $60.7 million in total for 2024. In 2024, we will continue to monitor energy markets to see if conditions are favorable to lock in power rates for 2027 and beyond for our wholesale purchase power contract. We will continue to make capital investments and improvements in our distribution lines, transformers, substations, and neighborhood streetlights. We will be focused on meeting our targets for streetlight outage, repair response times, as well as reducing our electric outage times for customers. Thank you, and now I will turn our presentation over to Deputy Director Elena Shockey to discuss the Sustainable Columbus budget.
Thank you, John. The Sustainable Columbus office is housed in the City of Columbus Department of Public Utilities. Our mission is to empower our community to thrive through sustainable resources, programming, and policy. The Columbus Climate Action Plan is our guiding document. This plan is a community-wide climate mitigation and resilience plan that commits Columbus to be carbon neutral by 2050, with a 45% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2030, all driven by and centering our work in equity, anti-racism, and environmental justice. There are 5 sections to the Columbus Climate Action Plan: Climate Solutions, the Columbus Way, Sustainable Neighborhoods, Buildings, Transportation, and Waste. In total, the Climate Action Plan identifies 13 strategies and 32 key actions as necessary to implement to meet our climate goals. To support our work and deliver on our ambitious goals, Sustainable Columbus's office is divided into 4 sections: Climate and Energy, Resilience and Behavior Change, Communications and Engagement, and Regulatory Compliance. Which brings me to our 2024 budget. In 2024, we've budgeted just over $1 million for personnel. This supports 10 full-time staff across 3 sections: Climate and Energy, Communications and Equitable Engagement, and Resilience and Behavior Change. DPU has allocated just over $800,000 for Sustainable Columbus personnel working on DPU sustainability initiatives. This funding supports 2 staff who primarily work on the Blueprint Columbus initiative. Additionally, the DPU sustainability budget includes funding for professional services, supplies, and materials to support sustainability efforts, including $30,000 for supplies and materials and $475,000 for services. This includes funding for our Green Spot program and solar and microgrid planning initiatives. Green Spot is our popular resident engagement program, coaching residents on actions they can take to live and operate more sustainably. Members can get great things like a $50 rebate on rain barrels, native trees, or a native plant that can participate in a variety of events like tours of the landfill, tours of wastewater and water treatment plants, and invitations to community conversations related to sustainability. In 2024, we will continue our efforts to support workforce programs and energy efficiency initiatives. We will support workforce development in the clean energy sector by continuing and growing the Empowered program. We have partnered with Impact Community Action to develop and implement this program. This program creates pathways for young people 18 and over from all backgrounds and communities. This program will serve as an entree for young people to explore careers that improve air quality, increase the comfort of our homes, and make our infrastructure stronger. Additionally, we will support 2 neighborhood energy efficiency programs, the Clean Clothes Initiative, which provides energy efficient replacement of washers and dryers, refrigerators, freezers, and stoves, and the Enhanced Weatherization Program, insulating attics, ducts, pipes, floors, and providing heating unit maintenance and repair and replacement services for residents in our opportunity neighborhoods. In 2024, Sustainable Columbus will continue to support our partnership with Solar United Neighbors to launch market rate and low and moderate income solar co-ops for Columbus and Central Ohio residents, giving them opportunities to come together to collectively learn about and purchase solar for their homes, using dollars that were legislated during last year's operating budget. Lastly, I want to mention 3 important federal funding opportunities that Sustainable Columbus is pursuing: 2 formula grants and 1 competitive grant. In 2024, Sustainable Columbus will receive $778,000 from the U.S. Department of Energy in formula grant funding for energy efficiency and conservation block grant programs, and plans to use these funds to partner with the Human Services Chamber to complete energy assessments and implementation measures to improve energy efficiency in buildings owned and occupied by our community's nonprofits. Last year, Sustainable Columbus also received $1 million from US EPA to update the Columbus Climate Action Plan and create a regional overlay covering the Columbus Metropolitan Statistical Area, our 10-county region. Finally, Sustainable Columbus is working right now with our regional partners to pursue a competitive grant application for climate implementation funds to be awarded by US EPA through the Climate Pollution Reduction Grant, to awarding projects with near-term implementation-ready projects with significant greenhouse gas reductions. Our climate future is bright. I encourage viewers to visit our website. It's at columbus.gov/sustainable, and learn more about our work on Instagram at Sustainable Columbus. Thank you for allowing us to share information on the Department of Public Utilities and Sustainable Columbus 2024 operating budget and our important initiatives. We'd be happy to answer any questions.
Perfect. Chair, the floor is yours.
Thank you both, Deputy Director Lee and Deputy Director Shockey, for being here and presenting on the budget. Kudos to you, Deputy Director Shockey, for making a trip to the landfill sound like the prize today. So that's exciting. Deputy Director Lee, for you, how are increases in the cost of materials and supplies and services affecting how you budgeted for the coming year?
Thank you, Council Member. Our 2024 budget was really based in large part really on the last couple of years and some of the issues and inflationary pressures we've been seeing in those areas of material supplies and services. We really didn't want to look back and base our budget, pre-pandemic. Many of the same inflationary trends, supply chain issues, and cost increases are still affecting many things in our department, one being chemicals. Chemicals that we treat, water as well as sewer, have been increasing exponentially over the last few years. And so we actually have a 25% increase in the water budget, and you'll see that in the supply line there. We are also experiencing increased costs for equipment and really delivery delays in equipment as well as vehicles. It's taking a long time, build time, and we are also getting canceled orders. We see that happening. So a lot of the time, I guess you could say, is built in that. We're trying to kind of preload some of our equipment and keeping that time factor and that cancellation potential in mind. And we have been experiencing some delays in microchips. I mentioned the EMP project, those AMI meters. Things are kind of winding down a little bit as far as that impact, but there have been some delays in deployment because of that factor. And a lot of chips and other components have been a driving factor with delays. I will say one other thing with our budgets that we've accounted for would be really labor costs. We've seen a lot of labor cost increases over the past few years in our service contracts, so we've had to account for those. So I think overall, that's why you're seeing, when you look at our budget, you're seeing those three characters, that materials and supplies, the services line, and that capital equipment, that 06 line. Those are really the drivers behind those increases.
Thank you. Just kind of forecasting out and understanding what is to come and hopefully preparing for it responsibly in your budget. Can you describe some of the successes you've had with increasing enrollment in the low-income and senior discount programs and how you plan to build on that in 2024? As you know, many of our residents are, they're still struggling, and it's the idea of increasing water, sewer, energy prices for them is just concerning. So can you just speak to the discounts somewhat?
Sure, Councilmember Wyche, thank you for that question. 2023 was actually a really great year for us. We saw probably since the last 10 years, probably the biggest increase in participation, particularly on the low income side. We have a senior discount as well, but the majority of that increase was focused on our low income program. And a lot of that is really attributed to what we've done internally. And our commitment to increasing those numbers and working with our Sewer Water Advisory Board and getting their comments and their feedback about the need to really focus in on that. I will also say that we've really strengthened our partnerships and our outreach efforts. One example would be our partnership with Impact Community Action. We've got a good program with them. What we're doing is we're really drilling into how to connect and how to get people signed up quickly, how to fast track them. One of the things that we did was we looked at the eligibility requirements, and we're looking at other eligibility requirements such as SNAP, if you're eligible for SNAP, but in the case of Impact, if you're eligible for HEAP, you're automatically eligible for the low-income discount program. So really linking those two eligibility components together really helps fast track folks and get them signed up. We're also working with our city partners and departments, making sure that our flyers are up at community centers and rec centers. And we've also been working with our county auditor, really looking on the data side, really drilling into that component. Where can we identify groups and properties, multi-units, that are not participating in our program? I think that's really one of the biggest challenges. I think there's a lot of entities out there in those multi-units that are not aware of our program. And we're also working on the challenge of apartments. That's always a big struggle for us, and that we're going to focus in on in 2024 is really how do you get those folks signed up in apartments that don't have a water meter and don't have a specific account.
Thank you for that. I mean, it speaks to the collaboration that is necessary to kind of get that message out there and continue to get our residents to take advantage of these programs if they so need to. So appreciate that. Last question for you, and you touched on this a little bit related to our debt obligations. So the city is now carrying over $5 billion in debt obligations, with nearly 60% coming from public utility projects. Large capital projects continue, of which, the fourth water plant that you mentioned in the coming years. How is the department managing this debt, and how do low interest state loans factor into this effort?
Thank you, Councilmember Wyche. Yes, debt is a very large component of our operating budget. As I noted, particularly for water and sewer, in some cases it outpaces our actual operating expenses, largely on the sewer side. Debt financing is the primary tool that we use to finance our projects, in large part really based on the size and scope of our projects, multi-million-dollar projects, and also the asset life. Looking at the asset life of these major projects, which can be 20, 30, 50 years plus, and really recognizing that, not one single population now should really have to pay all that debt service and for that project now. These are assets that need to be extended over time and paid down over time. But to do that, we have to partner with agencies to allow for that financing. And we've got a great partnership with Ohio EPA and the Ohio Water Development Authority. What they offer is very low interest rates and very favorable loan repayment terms. So basically everything that we can move through that program, we do. And we are cognizant of our debt limits, and we work closely with our city auditor regarding the issuance of debt and the amortization and the payoff of that debt in a timely manner.
Thank you. I had an opportunity to sit down with the city auditor yesterday, so it was timely that we had this budget presentation. She kind of talked about our debt obligations and where we were in relation to other cities, so appreciate that work. Deputy Director Shockey, I wanted to go back to you to highlight a little bit of the Blueprint Columbus initiative and how it is helping underserved communities make improvements to reduce basement flooding and also reduce the amount of stormwater entering our sewer systems. If you're able to just speak a little bit more about it.
Yes, thank you. Blueprint Columbus is our Department of Public Utilities initiative to eliminate sanitary sewer overflows in our community and meet our consent order obligations. Many of our Blueprint project areas are in opportunity neighborhoods. Our projects combine upgrades to the sanitary and storm sewer infrastructure as well as green infrastructure construction. Our project, our sump pumps and roof water redirection help to direct water away from a home's foundation, helping to keep basements dry and rainwater out of the sanitary lateral. While Blueprint isn't an effort to solve basement flooding, the work we do helps to keep rainwater away from a home's foundation, which in turn helps to keep our basements dry. Lateral lining helps to seal up the cracks in the sanitary lateral, keeping rainwater out of and mitigating sanitary sewer overflows and basement backups. So far, we've installed 350 sump pumps in the Linden area. We've lined 1,071 laterals in Linden, and we've redirected downspouts for 229 homes. We've also begun sump pump installations in the Hilltop and the Miller-Kelton areas. We've installed 500 sump pumps in Hilltop and 200 sump pumps in Miller-Kelton. Altogether, these are real private property improvements that are helping our residents and equally helping us to eliminate sanitary sewer overflows.
Appreciate that. Both my staff members live on the Hilltop, and they are eagerly waiting for you to install some pumps. I told them I'd shout you out just so we can get that moving as quickly as possible. The administration has set a goal of all buildings in Columbus being carbon neutral by 2050, with the work kicking off in 2022. Can you give us an update on the work being done so far?
Yeah, the path to net zero across all sectors, including buildings, requires complex, multifaceted, and collaborative work. Already, we've accomplished a great deal in the building space. We've adopted a building benchmarking ordinance so that we have transparency in how our largest buildings are performing related to their energy use. We have a robust, nation-leading commercial PACE program to help fund commercial building energy efficiency and renewable energy upgrades. And we're transitioning our residential and our small commercial building energy use to clean renewable energy at scale through our community choice aggregation program that we call Clean Columbus. Also, in partnership with Franklin County, we've launched the Columbus Region Green Fund, providing solar solutions to nonprofits and affordable housing in our community. And with Solar United Neighbors, as you heard, we offer solar co-ops to Columbus residents interested in going solar. But we're not done yet. In 2024, you'll see even more planning and investment in our historically disinvested neighborhoods. Through our work in American Addition to make that neighborhood the first net zero energy neighborhood in Ohio and the first historically Black net zero energy neighborhood in the country. You'll also see more activity happening in our Resilience Hub planning to provide localized energy resilience in neighborhoods most vulnerable to climate-related events and to strengthen the ability of our city to help community members survive and thrive during those hard times.
Thank you for that. I mean, the city's climate action plan was one of the things that excited me about becoming chair of the Public Utilities and Sustainability Committee. And so the hope really is to continue to do some quarterly updates so residents know where we're at in terms of meeting our goals for the future, because it's an urgent issue. I want to also give you a chance to highlight the work that we're doing through the Empowered program. I have said in a couple comments so far that, climate change isn't just about trash or recycling, water or energy, but it's also about workforce development. So just wanted to give you a chance to kind of highlight some of that work.
I very much appreciate that. It is true, this clean energy transformation that's happening is providing more and more opportunity to everyone. We have 52 students who've graduated from our Empowered program. That program focuses on providing students with exposure to the clean construction industry with a focus on building trades, weatherization, solar and solar installation, line worker jobs, facilities, maintenance, and building operations and manufacturing. We've successfully placed graduates in jobs with Connect Housing Blocks, AEP Ohio, our Department of Public Utilities, Impact Community Action's weatherization program, Solar is Freedom, Eco Plumbers, Construction One, Habitat for Humanity, and most recently and excitingly with Illuminate, a new solar panel manufacturing facility in Pataskala. So we're really excited that these are good paying full-time jobs with ladders to growth in the clean energy sector. Our graduates also leave the program with marketable certifications like their OSHA 10, their NCCER core, and a customer service credential. So this program is one of the highlights for us. It really is exciting to see young people coming together and getting excited about entering this industry.
Yeah, I'm excited to continue to engage with that program. Our office has set an ambitious goal of Columbus being the greenest city in the country, and we can only achieve that if we have workers who can work in those fields. And so this is just one step in the process in terms of building that green ecosystem here in Columbus. So that is all the questions I have. I'll kick it over to the other council members, see if they have any questions. All right, hearing none, I think we're good.
Thank you, Chair. And I just also want to acknowledge that I appreciate your commitment to talking about how we make our city greener. And I think that's something, I think there's so much work to do and there's an abundance of work to do in the city of Columbus. And I say this all the time, everything needs a champion. And so I'm excited that these are part of our conversations. I'm excited that this is at the forefront of the ways that we're thinking about the future of Columbus, especially for, as parents thinking about our kids and leaving this better than we found it, thinking back to our old city-year days. So I want to go ahead and move us over to public testimony. Again, I want to thank our folks for being patient with us. This hearing tonight had the most departments and some of the largest departments. So there was a lot for us to go through this evening. So thank you so much for hanging in there with us. So as a reminder to everyone who's coming for public testimony, we have 4 folks who we have here in person. We do have written testimony. Again, you have 3 minutes to speak when you come up to the podium. If you could introduce yourself, if you do represent any organizations, if you're just representing yourself, and then if we could, ensure that we keep things timely so that we can continue to move folks along, because I do know that the weather, snow should be starting here very soon. I want to make sure that we get folks home and on the road safely. So first we have Kyle Campbell. And next, after Kyle, we have Nolan Rushling. I said it correctly? Perfect. After Nolan, we'll have Joyce Richardson, and then Shirley Marshall. So you know which order we're going to go in, and I will do a reminder after each speaker. So Mr. Campbell, please come on down. Thank you for joining us. Welcome back to council.
Thank you. Hi there. My name is Kyle Campbell. I'm a proud resident of Southern Orchards in the South Side. I'm an advocate and member of Yay Bikes, Transit Columbus, and Bikes for All People. I'm a huge supporter of Bike Plus, Zone In, Link Us, all these initiatives that are going to continue sort of bringing the city up to par with the rest of the country and the rest of the world when it comes to transit and micromobility. I'm here to speak about the serious lack of investment in safe streets, historically and today. After COVID, we are now experiencing an epidemic of reckless driving in Columbus with no end in sight. Here to speak about recent events that have happened to myself and others this year. For one, just yesterday I was crossing Parsons Avenue, a 35-mile-per-hour strode with my friend at the intersection with Beck Street. This has a rectangular rapid flashing beacon at the crosswalk, which is great, but that doesn't stop numerous people from getting hit by reckless speeding drivers. Just yesterday, I pressed the button, crossed the street when there are no cars within hundreds of feet. While we crossed, a driver had to stop, and he felt so inconvenienced that he rolled down his window and yelled at me that he'll run my ass over next time I do that. I suppose because I happened to briefly make him stop, but I'm not entirely sure what he meant by that. Just after I got the bus to get here, driver blatantly ran a red light on Front and Gay Street and would have hit me if I walked when the walk signal started. I've experienced many moments like this since moving to the South Side last year, countless others since then, and some of which I even went to great lengths to report to the police, though with not really much of a response. In the South Side, I walk, bike, drive, and bus along Livingston Avenue, Parsons Avenue, Whittier Street, South High Street, but these are all stroads that prioritize the speed and convenience of drivers over the lives of residents and visitors of the South Side. There's virtually no enforcement from the Columbus Police Department when it comes to traffic. There's no real way to report reckless driving after the fact unless there is a collision and the culprit decides to stay at the scene. There's nothing stopping people from speeding, running red lights, or outright murdering people with their cars without recourse. To reinforce that, I wanted to highlight two tragic events within miles of my home in the South Side that happened just within the last week. On January 10th, David Lee, a 72-year-old resident of German Village, was crossing Whittier Street to his home, a street that has no right being 35 miles per hour, and was struck and killed by a driver who then fled the scene. On January 12th, Earl Kennedy, a 67-year-old resident of the Hilltop, was riding his bike along South High Street, a 45-mile-per-hour strode. While he was riding through the intersection with Southgate, he was struck and killed by a driver who fled the scene. I ask myself when I will become just another crash report statistic. If not, what will the city do to prevent that? We need to take this full-on crisis of unsafe streets seriously before more people like myself or the million other residents of Columbus become just another statistic themselves. Thank you.
Mr. Campbell, thank you for your continued advocacy. I know you and I have had a couple conversations about this. I'm excited because we've been having conversations also with Transit Columbus, and this is something that we continue to take seriously, working with the department. As part of Vision Zero, the Columbus Police are a partner with us within that. But again, I think it does take advocacy from our community. And just the same way that there's advocacy for us to change policy, to change legislation, that advocacy needs to be seen with all of our partners across the city to ensure that, and that's a partnership between both of us. I mean, both of our entities, right? The community council working with CPD as it comes to that. I think there's other things that we can be doing, and this is a consistent conversation we have with public service, where it's not always just about enforcement. There's time when there's time for enforcement, and then there's times where we can use some of the strategies that we see in public service. Changing the speed limit is challenging for us because we have to work with ODOT, and it becomes a lengthy process. That doesn't mean it's not worth it, nor that we should do it, but it is a barrier for us in some places. We were fortunate enough to be able to change it in downtown because it was a business district. So that is something that we will continue to do, but I say this to you every time we have a conversation, I appreciate your advocacy and the continued advocacy of our community, because it is always but for the people that change happens. And so every time that folks come down, every time that you share the names, just this past, November is when we do the Day of Remembrance for folks who were killed on our streets. And every time that you bring that up, it is a reminder to us that we need to do better. So I appreciate that, and thank you again for coming down to council.
Yep, and I appreciate the words you said. I also appreciate Deputy Director of Public Service, the increase in the budget, and I just wanted to, make that known that I'm, very happy with what I've seen with the city, aside from what I've said.
And we have some exciting developments happening on Broad Street in the Near East. We just got a big grant that we're going to try some protected bike lanes and do some other strategies along Broad Street, and then do some slow streets strategies along the Near East side, which then we can begin to replicate in other parts of the city. So again, thank you so much for coming down to council. And please get home safely. Nolan Rushling, and then Joyce Richardson, you were on deck. Welcome to council. Again, you have 3 minutes to speak if you want to introduce yourself and any organizations that you represent.
Yes, council members Wyche, Barroso de Padilla, and Day-Achauer, thank you for the opportunity to be here today. My name is Nolan Rutschling. I am the Managing Director of Energy Policy for the Ohio Environmental Council. My testimony today is going to focus on continuing climate action in preparation for the influx of federal resources that municipalities need to plan for during this historic time. Like all major metro areas, the city of Columbus is facing a historic challenge, working to prevent the worst impacts of climate change, both by reducing emissions and ensuring residents live in a resilient, equitable city. The good news, which we heard from a few other folks today, Columbus has already taken some positive first steps towards being a leader on climate action. That includes approving the city's boldest climate action plan yet. It also includes one of the most ambitious electric aggregation programs in the state. And acknowledging there have been some recent delays to those in-state renewable goals, the plan and goals are very, very ambitious. We've been proud to support all of the city's climate initiatives and will continue to do so. However, now that the plans have been created, now is the time to execute and to do so as quickly as possible. Goals aren't enough. We need to reduce emissions and prepare for climate change now. The good news is 2024 presents significant opportunities to grow the city's ambition and impact on climate and environmental justice work. Across the country, we're seeing billions of dollars in new projects and investments, creating hundreds of thousands of jobs because of the Inflation Reduction Act and other federal incentives for investment in climate action. Opportunities to decarbonize our energy systems are available, particularly for municipal utilities like the Columbus Division of Power, which don't have to operate under the same regulations and state rules as our investor-owned utilities. The city is exploring these opportunities, but agencies like the Division of Power seem to need more capacity and/or staffing to fully take advantage of the opportunity for generational change we have. To put it plainly, to ensure the city and residents are able to take advantage of these incredible funding opportunities, the city should increase funding and support the Division of Power and other departments, particularly Sustainable Columbus, to ensure they're properly staffed to take advantage of federal opportunities. If that happens, we're optimistic that increased investment will assist the Division of Power in implementing policies such as net metering, community solar, and others that ensure that customers within the municipal utilities territory can take advantage of these sort of opportunities. If I leave you with nothing else, I do want to make it very clear time is running out. not just to take action on climate change, but in particular, taking advantage of these federal opportunities in 2024 is very, very important because we don't know how the presidential election will go. These dollars could not be available in 2025 or beyond. Thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Chair.
Nolan, thank you for being here and providing your testimony. I did want to ask about the federal funding initiatives for climate initiatives. How would that increased funding for the Department of Public Utilities and Sustainability help our residents?
Yeah, it's a number of different things. You know, when we're talking about the municipal utility, this funding gives an opportunity to improve resilience, right? We saw that major blackout a summer ago that happened on AEP grid territory. It didn't happen to the same scale on the Division of Power territory. More investment means more reliable power for folks in Division of Power territory. It means opportunities for cost savings for residents, whether that's home weatherization projects, low to moderate income solar programs, and other investments that spur increased adoption of renewable energy and therefore lower costs. And finally, I do want to say, you know, there's another opportunity that I didn't get to in my quick 3 minutes. I think there's a real opportunity for the city, Sustainable Columbus, and other leaders to educate its residents on these opportunities. There's so much funding available right now for folks to save money, reduce their bills, and reduce their emissions. There needs to be more education there, and I think the city is in a great position to do so.
Thank you. Appreciate you kind of sharing that. And we have talked a little bit with DPU about how we might be able to structure some type of marketing campaign to kind of direct our residents to, because we want to take advantage of it. If there's federal funding available, we want that funding coming to Columbus. I do want to ask, you know, what costs the city might see in adapting to climate change? I think most municipalities, that is the major concern and hesitation.
Yeah, you know, the OEC and our partners, Power, A Clean Future Ohio, released a report a little over a year ago called The Bill is Coming Due. It was focused on exactly that, the cost of climate change to municipal governments. We estimate that based on a conservative climate model, assuming we do some climate action, Ohio's local governments will need to increase municipal spending between $1.8 billion to $5.9 billion annually by 2050, just to adapt to the challenges of the climate crisis. And so that includes things like maintaining our streets, our water lines, our power lines, heating and cooling centers, which we heard a little bit about today, and other big infrastructure issues. So if we don't take action and we don't start planning now, costs are only going to go up.
Just kind of speaks to the urgency of us doing more in this space. And so I appreciate you being here to highlight that. As someone who, again, wants to see Columbus be the greenest city in the country, I have to depend on experts like OEC to kind of help educate me because, I've never worked in this space. I'm just a dad who cares about what the planet's going to look like for my kids and everyone else's kids in the next 20, 40 years. So the urgency is there. The claims that this is a priority has been made. Now it's time for action. So thank you.
Thank you for being here this evening. Councilmember Day-Achauer, did you have any questions? I'm sorry, before we let our speaker go.
No, I have no further questions.
Thank you. Thank you. Get home safely. Next, we have Joyce Richardson and then Shirley Marshall.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Well, my name is Joyce Richardson, and I was here yesterday. What I noticed was, with Kyle, I'm going to touch bases, but I'm going to add to that real quick. Because I actually realized in my neighborhood, not only on the south side, but I live at Livingston and Hamilton, that intersection is bad. There's children walking from Walnut Ridge. I watch those kids every day. I'm so scared for those kids because we have to get hit in our own neighborhood. 3 people have to die for these kids to have a crosswalk. And like he said, majority of the time, these people don't pay attention to the traffic. You literally, in my eyes, they see everything. I literally seen the dog getting almost got hit by the car, so then traffic's going crazy. You know, there's no cameras up on the streets. They're talking about taking them down. Don't take that down. We need that in the neighborhood. That's how you track who's doing what and who's speeding and who's seeing. We're not just getting license plates, you know. And then I live down the street from Bexley. Bexley, literally, a guy got hit. I was there. I literally made them stop this guy. I said, stop that guy. You know, I jumped out my car. I parked my car. I get out and help him. He's a Jewish guy from Bexley. They stopped the whole, I mean, not that that mattered, but it was just like, it was like God. It was like it all happened, you know? And then this whole thing where they basically covered their city. They literally put a stop the two-way side. You can only come one way in and one way out. So when I'm thinking like, well, why don't that be a city limit thing? You know, because not everybody needs that kind of structure in their own environment. And those kids need those stoplights. We shouldn't have to get killed to get those stoplights up in our own city. Like down the street, you know, and there's a funeral home here but that was just adding to Kyle. But I'm really here on my own situation. I have a 14-year-old kid. I am fighting a lawsuit on the state of Ohio. And I feel like my life has been up in a roar, and I'm just scared and terrified that I'm gonna lose the rest of me trying to show this jury or this city or these judges that I am capable of being the person that I know I am. And I just don't understand because I'm listening to all these fundings going around, and I didn't know that this was fundamental. I came here to complain because all of this money is going to all of these fundings, and nobody's seeing where this money is going. Yes, you guys are doing it. I see that. Thank you for that. But why are nobody committing to those fundings? These people sit in these chairs in these offices. They're not persistent. They're not on time. Half of them are not even trained well enough, or are they even paying attention to the training because they're not showing that to us, and we're not getting what they're putting out. And I have, like, my kids went through Franklin County Children's Service. 2 of my kids are adopted, and I'm scared that I'm going to lose my son. He's 14. Came in here yesterday about that. They moved him with his dad, and that he's with his father, but now 2 summers in a row, he's one of those kids that were juvenile statistic kids that were not, I don't want to call him a statistic, but I don't want my kid to grow up to be an offender. And then you have the juvenile system. I'm sorry, one second. You have the juvenile system and all of these programs. People say, oh, they go together. If they go together, then why aren't they linked with these kids and they're still in trouble? Because that don't make sense to me, because my son didn't get that opportunity to get a big brother or a big sister. And he is a big brother 24/7 to 2 little kids, and he's the greatest. But at the end of the day, I want my son to be protected. And maybe that can help him and him be a leader and not a follower, and those kids can follow in his lead. So I think if we can bring those programs together, besides just saying, hey, my kid is a juvenile kid and he's on probation. You know, if you do this, you make that decision, then that's your outcome. But if you be rewarding and actually put it to work and say, hey, while you're doing that, you got to do this big brother, big sister, or you got to do this sports league. You know, we should offer that, because then that we're saying we want our kids to live. We want our kids to win. If we want that, then strut them to the right direction. Because
Ms. Richardson, I'm sorry to interrupt. Did someone check in with you yesterday after, I'm assuming you were you at a budget hearing, or were you?
Yes, I didn't know that this was
It's okay. It's okay. So this is what we're going to do, because I think there's a couple things in here. I just want to make sure the city of Columbus, not just the city, but there's many nonprofits that could help you with many of the things that you brought up. I think it's so overwhelming. And sometimes I think, especially when, you are raising children and you're working and you're living and you're trying to survive, who has time to research and find all those things? So my aide is right here, who I know that you had reached out to before, Amaris Lemus. She's going to check in with you, and then we can have a conversation to just address some of the things that you brought up. I want to thank you so much for coming down here, because I think that just talks about the testament that you have as a resident, as a mother, and the resources that you want to get. And I I read your testimony, and so I think if we can connect you with Amaris, then Amaris can move forward and connect you with some of the things that you're asking for, so that way we can be directive, so we can do some of that work for you and take some of that off your plate to get you into the right, whether it's a organization or city services that we can provide for you. But thank you so much for coming down here.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Have a nice evening.
Thank you. You too, and be sure you're safe getting home. And then our last speaker tonight is, come on down, Shirley Marshall. It's good to see you again, Ms. Marshall.
Thank you, council members, for allowing me to come tonight and give my testimony and to put a face with my written testimony that I submitted. I'm on behalf of the East Side resident dealing with flooding issues. We've been dealing with flooding issues for quite some years, and so
since the 1970s, as a lifelong East Sider.
2016. I've been dealing with the public utility in regarding to Barnett's stormwater pipe project, and that still has not been addressed. But not only that, but the streets, residents are dealing with flooding on the streets, Barnett, Livingston, Towers, Main Street, as well as in our backyards and in our basement. And we would like to get some type of relief, because during the rainy season or whenever it rains, we have those issues, and we would like to get those addressed as soon as possible, or some type of help, some type of assistance to help us to deal with the flooding in our backyards and in our basements. So I was hoping that you guys could put that to the forefront and discussing in your budget in deep consideration.
Did you want to talk about the other issue, or did you want to just talk about
this?
So I think we had met before at the Mideast Area Commission meeting. I am your neighbor. I grew up right 6 houses away from Eastmore High School. Literally, when I say our house is flooded since the 70s, I'm not joking. It's also because we are on a floodplain, which is unfortunate. I don't know if we knew those things back then when they built that entire part of the east side. I also live in Eastmore now, but I do want to hand it over to Deputy Director Lee to talk a little bit about, if you could address just the project and then address also some of the other resources that folks, I know we had talked about this during budget hearings last year around sub pumps, other resources that folks have, but.
Sure. Thank you, council member. I'm sorry to hear about your flooding issues. And number one, I'd like to connect with you to find out, get your information, and we could look at our capital plan. I don't know offhand where this project may be in the pipeline. I don't know if you've talked to anybody at the department, but we can definitely see where this is, if it's even on our radar. I hope it is. And so once that is programmed in, if it already is programmed, even I can get you some details on the project schedule. And then I'll look to see if there's any coordination with other departments, if this is kind of a joint project with public service, if there's some roadway work and other culvert, storm, road work associated with that. As far as your water and basement issue, we do have some resources for that. I don't know if you reached out to our Division of Sewers and Drains. If you have an immediate water and basement backup due to a sewer issue, we have some resources to help you remedy that situation.
I think it's the sub pump program.
The sub pump program?
That it wouldn't come to our neighborhood until 25.
That could be, I don't know offhand. We are kind of, moving from neighborhood to neighborhood, and, once we get to your neighborhood, maybe in about a year, definitely take advantage of that sump pump installation program. I think it will help solve a lot of your problems. Looking at some resources that we got from our department here live, that project that you're discussing actually is moving forward. So again, I'd like to connect with you to give you some more details on that. So that's hopeful for you.
next, I will have my aide, Amaris is right here, who you communicated with before the budget hearing, and then we'll just follow up with you afterwards. So we'll give you all time to connect, then let's follow up and have a conversation. And then I think the other thing, larger conversation that we should have after this is, because that has been such a problem on the east side. I think you remember that east side community meeting where there were many folks who came up to talk about this. Afterwards, maybe we could even do a joint visit to the area commission to talk about some of those issues, because I know it is a long-standing issue with folks. I mean, my parents have lived in their house for more than 50 years, and it's been a long-term issue for them. So thank you so much for coming down here this evening. Please get home safe. Make sure you make the connection before you leave, and we'll follow up. Okay? So with that, I want to thank all of our council members. I especially want to thank all of our staff, especially our new staff. You made it through budget season. I mean, not all the way through, at least budget hearing season. But thank you all for being part of this one. Again, like I said, this was a big, long one. We have been here almost 3 hours, my friends. Speaking about Director Reese, what can we make better? We'll have to rethink this in the future. But I wanted to also say, if you're watching tonight's hearing and would like further information, please visit the city website. Also, if there's additional questions that folks have or additional testimony of anything that you've seen this evening, you can also reach out to my aide, Amaris Lemus, at aslemus@columbus.gov. Obviously, you can reach out to any of our council offices if there's ever an issue that you are facing, and you can watch us recording and play it back on all of our social media channels. But thank you again to everyone. Please be safe out there. The snow is starting this evening. Tomorrow we're going to have a press conference. If you see our snow warriors, please thank them. If they are out on the road, remember that if they're not going to be able to see you if you stay right on them. So make sure that you keep a distance from those plows that are treating our roads tonight. And with that, everyone have a safe evening. Stay warm and stay safe. Thank you.